That's l'chaim l'chaim v'racha. Was you based Tammuz Farbrengen? Let's see. You based Tammuz Farbrengen. The first year, the previous Rebbe was in United States. It was Farbrengen, you based Tammuz, and the Friedrich Rebbe began the Farbrengen with the way we just did, l'chaim l'vracha. And that's the way that Jews always wish each other, l'chaim l'vracha, to life and for blessing. This is a blessing that Jews have been giving each other for many, it's hard to know when it started. But the previous Rebbe revealed on that day, and that occasion, Beis Tammuz, the inner meaning of this blessing. He said that when you say l'chaim l'vracha, you're not just giving a blessing to your friend that's right there with you, the people around you. Whenever two Jews meet together and they say l'chaim l'vracha, they're giving a blessing to every single Jew in the whole world, and they're also giving a blessing especially to those who need a specific Yeshua, those who need a specific salvation. When we come together in Beis Tammuz, we say l'chaim l'vracha. It's not just we're giving a blessing to each other. We're giving a blessing. There's a blessing that comes down through our gathering, to our families, to our community, and not just to our families and our community, but to all the Jewish people. I just read right before I arrived here. I just read this interesting story about English Rabbi Pharaoh from Manchester. He was trying to raise funds to build a building in Manchester, and he said to the Rebbe that it's not really going so well because people are wondering why are you asking us in the United States about a building in England. No, so Rebbe said, I'm talking all the time about Avos Yisrael, talking about love of your fellow Jew, and how could people not get it? Basically, like of course we should be concerned about the building in Manchester because we're all one family. That was so. L'chaim, have in mind, as the previous Rebbe said, the day of Beis Tammuz is not just yontif for a Rebbe. The Rebbe was saved. Not just yontif because for those who love mitzvahs, because now after the previous Rebbe was released, it became possible for everyone to perform mitzvahs. But the previous Rebbe said, that this day is the day that is redemption, that brings freedom to every person, even to those who are merely nicknamed Jews, people who are Jewish in name only. They don't consider themselves really to be Jewish, but they're called Jewish. So on this day, there's a day of Geula. That's the words of the Rebbe. These are words of absolute truth. Am Islamite. It means that each of us today, we're able to have absolute freedom from whatever was disturbing us a moment ago, whatever was on our minds, on our hearts, anxiety, this, that, problems. Comes Beis Tammuz. Beis Tammuz is different. I shared the story yesterday. I don't think most of you heard the story. It's worth repeating. There was a chassid who was a little bit senile in his older age. And every morning he would wake up, and every afternoon he would wake up, and every evening he would wake up, and he would ask the question, is today you Beis Tammuz? So this boy who was taking care of him said to him one morning, yeah, today's your Beis Tammuz. So the boy leaves, comes back, and the bed's empty. So what happened? Where did the guy go? And he found him in the shul. He was learning, he was davening. He said, how in the world did you get out of your bed? I said, what do you mean how to get out of my bed? Today's your Beis Tammuz. So my friends, today is really your Beis Tammuz. Today is really your Beis Tammuz. Let's raise our glasses. Let's say l'chaim to each other, not just to each other, but to all the Yidden in the world. It's also, I want to give a special bracha in memory of the Farbrengen is dedicated by Shmuel and Gela Reber in honor of their anniversary. And happy returns to this day. The Macha Mendel and Alona Krasinski in honor of Nach Mendel's birthday yesterday. And today is also the yard site. Today, Mamish, is the yard site of Alan's mother. What's her name? Bracha Bas Nachum Shaya Levi. L'chaim should be good, the better for you, for all family, for all good. Sich Klal Yisrael. What's your mother's name? Miriam Bas Yeshua. L'chaim V'rach. We have with us tonight. We're blessed to have with us tonight Rabbi Brod, Rabbi Begun, other rabbis which are coming, Mitzvah Shem, hopefully soon. But really, it's really a great honor to be with everyone together at Farbrengen. Rabbi Brod does not like any titles, any introductions. So I will not give him any introductions, any titles. I will merely just say L'chaim Rabbi Brod. Please share something. Rabbi Brod.
Fine. I really thank you for that. Fine. Based with the Baal Malchus, I want to share a talk from the Rebbe. The Rebbe spoke on a Yud Beis, I think it was a Yud Shvat, rather, about the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. Yud Beis Tammuz comes out the Pasha of Pashas Chukas, like this week, Pashas Chukas. Between Chukas and Bolok. And the Rebbe always ties in any holiday that happens during the week, what kind of connection does it have with the Taf of the week? What does Yud Beis Tammuz have to do with Pashas Chukas? Pashas Chukas is a chayk. There are many chukim in the Torah, but a chayk like Torah Duma you don't find in the Torah because it has two opposites, and therefore it like really doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's l'mayla mitama das legamay, the Indian from Chuko, Torah Duma. The Rebbe says by the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was the same concept of his life, Chuko. Now I'll explain. The Rebbe divides basically the 30 years from the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe's life when he took over the leadership from his father. 10 years in Russia, 10 years in Poland, 10 years in the United States of America. The Rebbe says every 10 years where he was a total different kind of Mesiras Nefesh. Beginning with Russia. We all know what Russia is, the name itself, Russia. Russia is evil. He had Mesiras Nefesh physically, Poshet Begashmis, Mesiras Nefesh. He sat in jail the first time as an 11-year-old boy already. As an 11-year-old boy, he sat in jail. Why? Because he stuck up for another Jew. He saw a policeman smack the Jew, and he knew the policeman was wrong, and he couldn't. How do you raise your hand against a Yid? So the Frierdiker Rebbe, as an 11-year-old boy, pushed him and cursed him out as a real good. Well, what are you doing? Obviously, they grabbed him right away and put him in jail. The whole story. But the first time, he sat in jail as an 11-year-old boy. The Frierdiker Rebbe sat in jail in Russia 7 times. They say like this: 6 and 1, or 5 and 2. What does it mean? 6 and 1, 6 times he sat in jail, but the 7th time was the hardest and the worst of all the other ones that he sat in jail. Or 5 and 2, 5 was under the first regime, and the other 2 times was under the communist regime. But anyway, we see from here the Mesiras Nefesh, which the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe had, Poshet Begashmis. When they hit him, they beat him, they threw him down the staircase, the famous story, and everything else. So he took upon himself, this is Poshet, the physical pain that he endured in Russia. And not only that, to send somebody else to go on Mesiras Nefesh in a way is even harder. A person himself feels he wants to go Mesiras Nefesh. Okay, that's your prerogative. But to send another Yid, and we knew that when he sent, many people never came back. Rahman al-Islam, they shot them, or they went to the Gulag, they sent them to the Gulags, they went to Siberia, whatever it is, they didn't even come back. So to send somebody Mesiras Nefesh in a way is even worse. And this went on for 10 years. 10 years Mesiras Nefesh, you know what this means? It's unbelievable. The next 10 years, he was in Poland. And we know he was in Warsaw, in Otwock, and so on. Over there was a total different kind of battle, total different kind of Mesiras Nefesh. The Frierdiker Rebbe is to teach Chassidus Chabad, beginning from the Alter Rebbe, from the Baal Shem Tov. And in Poland was a lot of Polish Chassidus, Polish Rebbes, and so on and so forth. And psychologically, he had a lot of Mesiras Nefesh because, as we all know, Chabad is always different. Chabad is different. This is different, and this is different, and the film is different, and the Alter Rebbe changed things. I mean, and so why dafka like this, and why dafka like that, and it held back the Frierdiker Rebbe from spreading Yiddishkeit. I mean, spreading Chassidus among the Polish in Poland. So that was another kind of 10-year of Mesiras Nefesh. Then started another 10-year Mesiras Nefesh when the Frierdiker Rebbe came to the United States of America. This is a total different kind of Mesiras Nefesh. At that time, who wore a beard, who kept Shabbos, it was a tremendous destroying, tremendous test. It was people looked at a person today. Half the homeless people here in California all wearing beards, and many distinguished senators today wear beards. But at that time in America, at that time somebody wearing a beard or being a Shema Shabbos or something like that was unheard of. And he had to fight America's Nishtanders and start the whole thing all over again. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe writes, or says in a Sikha, that the first night or the second night when he came and he had already a meeting with the close friends, because he was here 10 years before in America, and I had a meeting with them to how to elaborate and to open up moisdes of the chinuch and so on and so forth. So they told him, Rebbe, like I'm paraphrasing, of course, Rebbe, we are your friend, and we really shoot really the best. But I think you're I don't want to say the word dreaming, but your optimism is way too great and too much, because this is America. This is not Europe. This is not the place. And the Frierdiker Rebbe writes later that how much he cried that night. Look what even his friends and so on and so forth. So that was the 10 years when he was in America. The Rebbe says like this: a person can have Mesiras Nefesh in one direction. One Mesiras Nefesh hit me. Okay, he'll take that. To have a Mesiras Nefesh physical, then to have another kind of Mesiras Nefesh spiritual, and that kind of Mesiras Nefesh. And then in the United States of America, another 10 years separate. This represents Chukah. Chukah is L'mayla Mederech HaTeva Legamri. What is Chukah? A choik with no understanding whatsoever. So the same thing is the behavior, how the Frierdiker Rebbe acted. And what he did was everything L'mayla Mederech HaTeva Legamri. So anyway, this is that we can learn also that we should also lift ourselves a little bit higher, a little step higher. L'chaim.
Alan, want to share a few words on of your mother?
honor of being able to share a few words. Here. Also, I'm so happy to be part of it.
Oh, Shalom Aleichem.
Who was and continues to be an absolute exceptional husband to my mother. What, 55 years?
He's not counting. He's not counting.
Not counted. I would say absolutely, from my perspective, child growing up in a family, was absolutely a love affair that I can only hope to model for my children when I come home. Well, also when I say thank you to my wife for giving me her shoes to come out, she's not here, but we 6 weeks ago, Baruch Hashem, were able to, she gave birth to 2 beautiful baby girls. Older siblings helping, so I can come out here and speak a few words. I would be remiss not to begin with a very small word. My parents, and I'm very careful with what I'm about to speak about because my parents went through the incomparably difficult circumstances of growing up in communist Russia and having to have survived that chunk of time. I'm sorry, Michelle, I'm speaking about my mom right now, so I'll put you on speaker so you can hear. So my parents who had to go through that time period and had to bring on their shoulders their parents, including my grandfather, Mazedi, on my mother's side, Nachum Mishai Halevi, who I'm going to speak about also just briefly, but having to have gone through that to come to here, to the United States, to America, to come and to have the freedom and to take the freedom that America gave them, and to help encourage our growth as a family and my own personal growth in Limud Torah and so for that I thank my parents very much. Rabbi Levin asked me to say a few words about my mother. So first divorce. So the curse that comes out of the mouth of Bilam is of course Matovu Ohalecha Yaakov Mishkenosach Yisrael. Words that we say every single morning as we enter into the shul, into our homes away from home. And a simple question would be, why should a non-Jewish Navi's words be the words that we say as we walk into the shul? And a very simple answer that I heard is that it cuts to the emes of the Jewish people. What's the emes of the Jewish people? That the Masorah begins, right? Yaakov was an Isha, a person who dwelled within his own home. That the Masorah, the Torah, lives and breathes and grows in the home, right? And there's a bit of a repetition. So, Matovu, how goodly are the tents in which we live in, but Mishkenotecha, we're dwelling. What's the difference between living and dwelling? And why are we saying Yaakov's name and then Yisroel's? And so why do we say these words that are brought from a non-Jewish Navi? We say them because it cuts to the truth. And what's the truth? The truth is that while Torah begins in the home and it's cultivated in the home which, as the Navi says, that the wisdom of the mother, of the wife, builds that home, and that was infused in my home, and I'll share with you in just a moment why I feel that way about my home. But it begins in the home, but the Mishkenotecha, right? Yaakov, the person that he began, the Nar that he began, and Yisroel, the person that he became, the maturation of Torah, that you take the struggle, Yisroel, the struggle with God, that you take out into the world, the dwelling places, it begins in the home, it's cultivated in the home, it's taken, and then the Mishkenotecha is that's where Kadosh Baruch Hu comes and he dwells. So these homes, these Jewish homes that we struggle to build, we bring a Kadosh Baruch Hu in, and they become places of dwelling for Kadosh Baruch Hu. Nowhere was that more true than I think in my own home with my father. A way to know a person, I think, we have a long-standing Masorah of telling stories, and Chassidim are unbelievable. Well, I wish I had as many stories as every average chassid has in his head. I don't have some. But stories, there is a concept in the Gemara of Maisa Harav. A story proves a truth. You tell a story to prove something. And one can also say that you tell a story, that through telling a story, especially telling a story about someone, telling a story about someone else, you learn something about that person. So my mother raised me on stories of my grandfather. And I'm going to start with just saying, the first word I'm going to say about my mother is but the stories that she chose to say about my Zaidi is how I remember, is the first things about that I remember of my mother. I didn't know my Zaidi. My Zaidi was Nifter when I was 3 years old. My Zaidi came over from Ukraine, from Kiev. My father and my mother, they brought their parents over. And the first thing he did as soon as he got to the shores of the United States was he went and found the Chabad. First thing he did. Why? He hadn't davened. He would barely ever be able to daven. He would daven once. That's what my mother would tell me. He would stand outside. He would come by seeking from 6 to 5 in the morning while it was dark and it was cold. He would come and he would stand outside one shul in Kiev, and he would try to daven whatever he remembered from Cheder when he was a child. So as soon as he comes to the United States, my mother tells me, I don't know this. I wasn't in age. I can't see this with my own eyes. And we know it's because my mother told us. That he comes in and he goes straight and goes, we need to find the shul right away. And he made sure that year when they first came, and my grandfather made sure that everybody had a Seder again. It was by Chabad. We have a tremendous amount of person. And so knowing that my mother wanted to make sure that I knew that this idea of sometimes you hear the Schnarch guy, people saying, Schwer zu sein hier, right? It's hard to be a Jew. My mother said, believe me, we've been through the hardest and we've never said such a word. These words never uttered. Thank God for my mother and my father, my grandmother, my Bubby lived with us also. Never. And these people, I feel guilty walking around Pico every day. I feel guilty going whenever we want. I take my children. We went to Baruch Hashem before my mother was Nifter. One of our greatest memories is we went to Eretz Yisrael, and the pleasures, the privileges of being a Yidrite. It's so easy. It's so easy to do mitzvahs. It's so easy to do these things. We think it's hard, but it's not. It's not. They had it hard. And so every little tiny bit, every crumb of Yiddishkeit that they could pass on, they did.
Alan, give us a crumb. They want to put inside of ourselves and we go with. But because there's a lot of they're giving us an aura, an environment. Okay. Give us something that we're gonna take home personally and direct. The brain is about action. Give us something in action we're gonna do.
Action we do.
An action. Tell us how we're gonna bring this home.
Bring it home. So you got me on the spot. I don't have
I would say
the action to bring home is I would appreciate that. I hope that everybody is able to not just get physics from Rabbi Schneerson, who was freed on this day, but from the simple Jews throughout the world that also experienced their own torment. They were able to survive these conditions and to become wings in the Masorah that we should all be. So whenever we go through our own Avodas Hashem, we should always just have in mind that it's just so much easier for us than it was for them, and we should just take that as chizuk and do even more. We have a chiyuv to do twice as much as the previous generation because of the privileges that we have. So
that was amazing. I like the twice as much thing because if you want your children to be as religious as you are, you have to be more religious than your parents. Because it goes down. So you want them to be as much as you have to be more than them.
Thank you so much also again for this year, for having the privilege of being able to talk for the Yom Shul. I feel very much it's become a part of our family.
We're part of one family, one family. I'm not ready yet.
This is Rabbi Zayed.
So good.
The letter said we have to walk out of here with something concrete, bringing this. Say with time. Beis meeting together. There's a lot of things that happen in Farbrengen, but the core of a Farbrengen is about walking away different than you came. That's the bottom line. If that's missing, everything else hides the interior. First of all, Beis Tammuz, the holiday of the previous generation. Generation that I mentioned earlier, that little Mesilas Nefesh meant Mesilas Nefesh. Self-sacrifice meant literally self-sacrifice. Matter of fact, you could ever said, always connected Beis Tammuz to the Parsha in Lolo, that Enam love the Yokum, Ari is not so, comparing our nation to a lion that gets up. Rashi brings down it on Thursday. Get up early in the morning and grab the mitzvah. Gather the mitzvah for Krishna, fill and fit. So the Rebbe explains in the Sifra, grabbing, what's different grabbing and just doing it? When you grab something, it's because you have incredible desire. You're excited about it. Something you're not excited about, you just take. You're just barely holding. To grab something is an expression that you really are enthusiastic about it. The Rebbe said, the Rebbe announced, those days of Mesilas Nefesh, you have to understand there were hundreds of Chassidim all over Russia that were in basements in hidden places doing Akotzes Ayabis, Mamish Mesilas Nefesh. Grandfather was sent to Siberia simply for teaching Torah to children. This was the price.
Can you just tell a moment about your grandfather?
Talking about the Frierdiker Rebbe, this is an extension of the Frierdiker Rebbe.
It makes it real. It tells personally. Your grandfather was, I didn't know that. Your grandfather was in Siberia. Taught Torah on the ground.
My grandfather was sent, it was a decade after Yubis Tammuz already. But didn't continue to go on the Sinai, even after what happened to Yubis Tammuz. But that sentence was given to the Frierdiker Rebbe. And Chassidim naturally knew that you can't stop. The Rebbe engraved in every one of the Chassidim. There's no two ways about it. You have to make a bris in the basement, if they'll catch you. There's nothing that should stop you. You have to do a wedding, you have to teach children, you have to have someone go to the mikveh. Everything should continue as usual, even if you pay the highest price. So as my grandfather continued to do the work, he was caught together with other students, sent to Siberia for hard labor. Not all of them made it out, but my grandfather miraculously came out. Whole story actually.
No.
One of those days he was out, it was snowy, it was a cold day, and his guard fell on the
You're saying it wasn't like Malibu. You're saying it was cold in Siberia.
very cold.
So like they couldn't surf that day. It's too cold to surf.
So what happened was he found his own guard painted, pushed it on the snow.
His own guard painted. Okay.
His own
Gotcha.
guard that was guarding the prisoners. So with his kind heart, he didn't just laugh at him, "Hi, good for you," and wish you died. He pulled them into the barrack and he revived them. Suddenly the guard looks up and sees one of his prisoners reviving him. He said, "I owe you.
Wow.
I owe you my loves." Wow. And they came when they were separating. There was a young, not a show, it's a Farbrengen. When they were separating the stronger, capable young man, sending to harder labor. So the guard told him, "You stand next to me." And my grandfather was a young, strong man. He definitely could have been sentenced to a much harder work. They would never make out of it. And this guard just told him, "Stand next to me." And suddenly he pushed him into a line going to a train. My grandfather just asked questions, went into the train and continued to go west. Now you have to understand, this is already when the war began. And my grandmother with the three girls had to leave Kharkov, where they were in the west, because bombs were falling already. The buildings were shaking, so they left to Samarkand, which was the southern part of Russia. So my grandfather, he is taking a train across Russia, running. And he always knew that for sure somebody's running after him. Matter of fact, even years later, when he was walking down Kingston Avenue with his cane, he would always look back. Always remember him walking it, always looking back, because he was ingrained. He's for sure somebody is walking after him. Running, from Siberia, could be caught, who knows. Anyways, he kept going from station to station, and they torture him. They cut his beard. He didn't look the way he looked before.
Who cut him?
In Siberia, they treat him like a prisoner, and they did whatever they wanted with him.
Not like that.
No, not even like Pico Robert. So when he was sitting in one of the train stations, there was a Rubashkin. I think that's Rubashkin's brother. Aaron's best uncle, for those that know Aaron's best. So he came to the station, even though my grandfather looked different. My grandfather also was like, covering his face. He was afraid of anyone. But he recognized him. This was him. So he was shocked. He looked at the husband about him. He said, "Ich weiß, wo dein Weib und Kinder sind. I know where your wife and kids are." He was also coming from Samarkand, and right there. Instead of my grandfather continued to the wrong place, into the war, into Kharkov, where my grandmother was. He had no idea. Here, he was able to be guided to go and reunite with her and then my mother and the three daughters. And from there, they escaped Russia, went to France and Germany and other countries until he came to Cuba, ready to see the Frierdiker Rebbe. And the Frierdiker Rebbe told him, "Stay in Cuba. You have Ashgacha Pratis." He came to Cuba, stayed there, and he said, "You have work to do there." And he was there for a year and a half. He actually, Makar Jadrinas Lapochnik, one of the people that later on became a Lubavitcher Chassid, he was an orphan. And he brought him to the Rebbe. Back to the Frierdiker Rebbe's demand of everyone having these snappers. He said about this pasuk about grabbing. The Frierdiker Rebbe announced, grab Mr. Snappers. He was telling us to them, grab Mr. Snappers because this is the time. There will be a time there will be no Mr. Snappers to grab anymore.
What's Mr. Snapish?
Self-sacrifice.
Grab sacrifice.
Yeah, grab self-sacrifice. Grab the opportunity to sacrifice your life for service. Because there will be a time, as we know, came tonight, County, United States. It's not the same. Nobody's with a gun on your head. If you're doing any mitzvah. So therefore, we have to know we are in Dor Shvi, we're a different generation. So why are we celebrating Beis Tammuz from the 6th generation? The answer is because the Beis Tammuz is a Beis Tammuz for us in Dor Shvi. It's a different Mesilas Nefesh. This explains the Mesilas Nefesh doesn't necessarily mean to give your life only. Nefesh also means Ratzon, your will, your desire. And Mesilas Nefesh today in America, in comfortable America, is partial to give yourself over what the Rebbe wants, what the Eibishter wants. So this is the Avodah, this is what we have to remember. Mesilas Nefesh is still demanded. Your Beis Tammuz is all about Mesilas Nefesh. The Frierdiker Rebbe is the symbol of Mesilas Nefesh. You want to talk about a person that gave himself literally the goof and effort completely, ad kedei Mesilas Nefesh, the point of self-sacrifice. This is the Frierdiker Rebbe. So therefore, to us, Yud Beis Tammuz, the Dor Shvi, the 7th generation, it's about giving ourselves over completely to make our will the Rebbe's will, to make our will God's will. This is what it takes. It takes for us to be able to go out of our limitations. It says about Geula means redemption. What is the Geula to us? What do we know about Geula? Sitting in prison, going out of prison. So the Alter Rebbe says in Perek Mem Zayin, Tzias Mitzrayim means Tzias Nefesh Elokis and Ma'aser Haguf, that the Nefesh Elokis goes out from this boundary of the body. And this is what Geula for us. Geula clearly starts with Geula Pratis. A macro Geula starts with the micro Geula. We have to start within ourselves. Geula starts within ourselves. Geula means that we make a resolution and determination, just like it did in those days. They were determined. There's no two ways about it. What the Rebbe wants, this is what I want. To the point of giving ourselves over to any price. To us, Mesilas Nefesh, in our version of Dor Shvi, is to give ourselves over, then we should sacrifice our will to the Rebbe. This is what the Rebbe wants. No, nothing should stop me. So this is what we take out from Yud Beis Tammuz Farbrengen and Dor Shvi. We have to remember to go out of our limitations, go out of our boundaries, go out of those things that restrain, that stops us from doing what we're supposed to do. And this day, as Levin mentioned, the Frierdiker Rebbe clearly announced, every single Jew. Imagine a Jew that barely knows about Yiddishkeit. The Frierdiker Rebbe says this person is also redeemed. The redemption affects everyone, which means we all have the power of redemption. This is what we need to do today. It's not just the demand. There's purpose. There are strength given to us today. There's 48 hours of basic given Tammuz. Like Rosh Hashanah, it's a 48-hour yontif, like this Kislev. And this 48 hours are given to us the purpose to go out of our limitations. Break. The normal day would be difficult. Today we have the strength more than ever. So Eibishter didn't only redeem redeemed each one of us, even Dor Shvi. Even though we feel, where am I that I should be redeemed? Baruch Hashem, I'm free. But I need to be redeemed. So the first thing we have to remember that we do need to be redeemed. That's half of the cure, is to be aware of what needs to be done, of the actual of our illness. When you know your illness, you're halfway there to the cure. When we know that we are in boundaries and we need to come out of the boundaries, we are already halfway there to the it is Yud Beis Tammuz. That from today's Farbrengen, we should be able to make a resolution, just like a Siddim, picture ourselves like being the Siddim of Frierdiker Rebbe. We are the Siddim of the Rebbe, of the Dor Shvi, the extension of the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Dor Shvi, the version of the Dor Shvi of Mesilas Nefesh is demanded from us today as well. And therefore, by each one of us making that resolution, we will receive the curses. The Eibishter definitely will give us the curses, each one of us, to be able to go out of our own Geula. And this is partially what the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Tapora the Placho, the Frierdiker Rebbe mentioned, about make fears eaten with Torah. Torah is one of the things that redeems us. Torah redeems us. All the V'shalom Nafshi redeems us by learning Torah, make a fears eaten for sit and learn Torah. to make more and more time to search, learn Torah, how much more so in the group. To daven, the Pasha to pay more attention in your prayers. And Gemilas Chasodim, and also in Tzedakah, those three things are what gives us the opportunity to redeem ourselves. So that each one of us having our own Gula Pratis, our own individual Gula, brings us about the ultimate Gula that ever taken out of God's take.
Amen. Abaretsky.
Chaim. I want to share a very interesting story about the Frierdiker Rebbe. It's connected also with the Rebbe's father and the Rebbe. Very interesting story. Not that well known. There was a bocher in Yeshiva in Tomchei Tmimim in Lubavitch. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe's father appointed him, his son, to be the menahel, to run the yeshiva, and to be involved in everything about the yeshiva, gashmis, physical, spiritual, the learning, everything. He was then 15 years old, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. At 15 years old, he appointed him to run the yeshiva. It was this bocher, at that time his name was Simcha Garadetsky. That was his name, Simcha Garadetsky. This bocher became ill. So the mashpia, the one who oversees, took him to the doctor.
The doctor.
To the doctor. He went into the doctor examined him, took a while, and then the mashpia, the supervisor, went inside to the doctor to hear a report from the doctor. So obviously he closed the door that he should not hear, and he said that this man doesn't have too much more time to live. the liver is no good, and the lungs is no good, and this is no good, and this is no good. Not too much time to live. Okay. He walked out from the doctor, and now he's walking back with Simcha Gardetsky to the yeshiva. So the Bacha asked him, what did the doctor say? So he said, the doctor said that you have to rest. You have to rest. You have to rest.
Go home.
Go home and you have to rest. He came obviously to the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he told and the Mashpia went in, and he told the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe the situation, what the condition of the Bacha, what the doctor told him. Fine. The Friedrich Rebbe called in the Bacha. Simcha Gardensky, the previous Rebbe called him in.
Did he know what the doctor said?
No, he didn't know. He came into the Rebbe. So the Rebbe said, I see it's a little bit difficult for you to sit all day in yeshiva. It's tiring and so forth. I want you to be a shadar. Shadar means you fundraise money for Temchet Mimin. And if you do work for me, you will be healthy. Everything will be fine. Okay? So he took upon himself and he became the shadar. There was a big chassid, a famous chassid, Rabbi the Masmid, and they were at that time in yeshiva at the same time. So they together went to fundraise. Now, how do you fundraise at that time in Russia? Two Chassidish Yidden come in. He's a younger person, a Bach in yeshiva. The Rabbi the Masmid is a Goen, Ibn Tzaddik. They walk into a shul, the Chassidish shul. So the first thing is they sit down and make a little Farbrengen. And the say that the order was, Rabbi the Masmid starts saying Chassidus. Chassidus discourse. This can go on for an hour and a half. He gets carried away and everything else. Now you can imagine when somebody sits down, when people come to Shul Mechamayr, when they're tired from work and everything else, and this person's starting Chassidus for an hour and a half, and when he opens his eyes and everything else, Rav Simcha Gardetsky cannot talk too much to ask the people to give money. There's no one to talk to. Half the people moved out from went home. So Rav Simcha said to Rabbi the Masmid, you know what, listen, all the respect, the bottom line is we need money for Temchet Mimin. That's the bottom line is. Let me chaza the Chassidus, let me say the Chassidus, and you'll farbrengen with the people. And he knew that way for sure, this will work much better. They'll fundraise much more this way. Rabbi Shemashman said, of course, I'm not here personal to show off or whatever, of course. And that's what they did. They came back one time from fundraising, and of course, they gave the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe total reports from everything what happened. And by the way, Rabbi Simcha Gardetsky told the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, you should know that because of the situation of fundraising, I switched with Rabbi the Masmid. I am chazing the Chassidus, and now Rabbi Itche is farbrengen. So the Friedrich Rebbe said, no. Rabbi Itche has to chaz Chassidus. You farbrengen. The Rebbe says, you don't ask any questions. The Rebbe said, you don't ask questions. But with all the respect, he said, like Rebbe, like the whole point is to fundraise, and if he's chazing the Chassidus. So the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe told him, I will show you. I will tell you. I will tell you. One time in that city, where the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was, there was a blackout. So the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe sent to call Reb Simcha Gardetsky. He came to the Friedrich Rebbe, and the Friedrich Rebbe took him to the window. And he says, what do you see? I see anything. He says, look again, what do you see? So I said, I don't see anything. He says, another time, he doesn't see anything. So the Friedrich Rebbe said to him like this, there are two Chassidim across over there and they're learning Tanya. They're so tired from everything else. And yet they're still learning. And there's a bright light shining from that apartment. Each of the Masmid, I don't know, I said in English, it's Misugul. He's like capable to see that light. So therefore, he should chazer the Chassidus. This is the story with the Friedrich Rebbe. The Friedrich Rebbe revived almost a dead Bacha, made him alive. Just to continue, the interesting of the story is, so he went to raise money and he ended up in Yekaterinoslav, where the Rebbe's father was the Rav. He came to Yekaterinoslav. So the Rebbe's father showed him his a letter from the Friedrich Rebbe to fundraise. So he says, okay, you're going to stay by me. So with all the respect, no. If you're a shlich from the previous Rebbe, you're going to be by me. So he stayed by the Rebbe's father, and the Rebbe's father said, "Come, we're going to go fundraise." So the Rebbe's father took him to the bank. There was a bank there, and the Rebbe's father asked the menahel, the top from the bank, "Please put a table and a chair over here." Everyone who walked into the bank, obviously we're talking about Yidden, the Rebbe's father said how much to give for Reb Simcha for the yeshiva. Nobody argued with the Rebbe's father. Whatever he said to give, as we gave. When they walked, and then they collected the money, they walked out. So the Rebbe's father said, "This is how you fundraise." Okay. Now they're back home by the Rebbe's father. And what can you give a present to a bocher from Temchet Mimim? You can give chassidus, to talk chassidus. So the Rebbe's father started to talk, as we all know, and spoke and spoke and spoke. It was the Rebbe. Huh? It was the Rebbe. Listen, spoke chassidus. The Rebbe, our Rebbe, was sitting also in a room, also listening to the same room, listening to the chassidus. So one time, the Rebbe's father asked, somebody asked, "What time is it? What time is it?" The Rebbe's father, I think, asked, "What time is it?" So the Rebbe, I saw one place the Rebbe walked out, the Rebbe looked on the skies, the Rebbe walked in and he said, "It's like 2 o'clock in the morning." This bocher, he never saw something like this. You know, the father asked the son, "What time is it?" He's sitting in a corner, he goes out and he says exactly what time it is. So he decided in the kitchen there's a clock. So he's going to wait a couple of minutes. Shouldn't sound suspicious. He's going to use officially the restroom. And then he's going to look at the clock and see if it matches the right time. And so he did. And he saw it was exactly that time. And he sat down. The Rebbe's father smiled and said, "Ah, das nicht geglaubt." You didn't believe. Anyway, a long story. So he went out many years later, he went out from Russia. And then he came to the Rebbe. And he asked the Rebbe where to live. And the Rebbe told him in Kfar Chabad. At that time in Kfar Chabad, there was no clinic yet over there. It's not like developed like now. So he told the Rebbe, since he was still not well, he needed doctor treatments from time to time. So he asked the Rebbe, why, if Kfar Chabad, there's no clinic. So the Rebbe said, the shver, which means my father-in-law carried you until now, he'll continue carrying you.
Wow.
I have a lot of interesting stories. What I did was today with today's technologies, I take my camera and I look through different sikhs and everything else and put it together and have interesting stories,
Very
things that
geschmack.
people didn't hear. Time.
Rebbe continue to carry you. Hey, ya, ma, 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 la, da, ma, 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 ma. Love you. You just feel it, Josh. Josh, River Farbrengen. Thank you, Josh. One second.
There's an interesting secret from the Rebbe Yud Beis Tammuz. I'm saying the story because the Rebbe said it on Yud Beis Tammuz.
Chaim Jun, weiter. Don't worry, just say it again soon.
In that sikha, the Rebbe spoke Yud Beis Tammuz how we should learn the Rambam. The Rebbe explained that at that time when it came out, Tofshin Mamdalad,
1984.
no, not the first time, but the Rebbe spoke again. He said that how much he answered questions, what people are asking, why to learn the Rambam and why they're against learning the Rambam and everything else. The Rebbe answered, and the Rebbe went again and he said, some people say why you shouldn't learn the Rambam because you cannot paskin from the Rambam a law anyway. So why are you learning it? So the Rebbe says we don't paskin from the Mishnah also not. So we should not learn the Mishnah. So the Rebbe said the plain shot of Rambam, everybody could understand. And he gave an example. He says, take a child and tell him in his language, if he doesn't understand Hebrew, tell him the first halacha from Rambam is that there's a God in the world. God, you say there's one God who created the world. A child will understand that. Then the Rebbe says, go to the end of the Rambam and tell a child what's going to be when Mashiach is going to come. There's not going to be no hunger, no anger, no competition, everything else. And the Melamed, the teacher, won't hit you, won't whip you. There's going to be a beautiful time. So even the child can understand. So I'll explain, you should learn the Rambam. In our Maimer HaMuzga and apprentices, this is what I want to bring. The Rebbe says like this, that learning Pshat, everybody can learn Pshat Rambam. But when it comes to Kiddush HaChodesh, that's already astronomical things and everything else. That's very difficult. And there was a Yid by the name Avrom Schus, hundreds of years ago, and the Rebbe says he's a big land, a big Goen and everything else. And he did dispute with the Rambam in the thing of Kiddush HaChodesh. So that's like an exception. And the Rebbe says in parentheses, and by the way, when we're living in the United States of America, the saying is Columbus discovered America. So the Rebbe says that Avrom Schus, since he knew astronomy and everything else, he was very intelligent. So he helped to navigate Columbus to come over here to the United States. And then the Rebbe says, and it's also possible that his Talmud went also with him. His students went also with him. Huh?
A student of the Ramaz went with Columbus to discover America.
Navigation. And the Rebbe continued saying, and therefore we find even in the United States, the Rebbe said, Megalagivan, he revealed America. In other words, America was there before. And the Rebbe said, not only that, the animals that are here and many things here was always here. Because before they were like in the Soldik area, by Nahapros, Gichen, all those areas. And then from there, they got spread out to the whole entire world. So they were here in America also. And therefore, they found certain from Hebrew that South America, they found Hebrew things. So that was said because it came from many, many years before. I just want to bring this point. I don't know how many people know about this. So this is a sikha the Rebbe spoke. Yud Beis Tammuz by Farbrengen.
posted this video a few times on the Beis channel.
Avremel, sag Avremel, tell us something. Time is great, but tell us something besides L'chaim.
The only thing I can tell you is time.
Time, Rav.
So Farbrengen and I had discussed today to go to Levaya begin. Amazing mitzvah, a fellow that passed away all the way in Stockton in Northern California. So stay up there, Rabbi Bud, maybe he's related to you, is his son?
He's related, only my son.
Oh, okay. So now that's the connection. Yeah, I knew there must be a connection up here. We got a caller of Shabbos that his sisters. How do we know this family? It's an interesting thing. One night 7 years ago, I guess the point I'll mention the Farbrengen is mitzvah gereres mitzvah. What happened? One night 7 years ago, I came back to my flat on Corning Street, and some kids were standing in the street asking for help making the money. I was not in the mood of, I was tired. We just got back from a long road trip, and my kids were, I had to shut them in. They were all sleeping, and fine. So, but you didn't want to make a menu. It was a shiva house. So I said, okay, let me just carry my kids inside, and then I'll come back. And I came back, and there was this nice family. They're not from. Their parents were Holocaust survivors. They had some store. I forgot the name of the store. Maybe some of the old timers over here in LA know a Jewish Bialy store. Such a thing as a bagel store. Such a thing as a Bialy store, like a different type of a bagel. So European invention. This guy had a survivor, came in the 70s, made such a store, and was here for many years. So we made the minion, and the son, his name was Jerry, says, so either I told him about Kaddish. Yeah, I want to do the best thing for my father. Wake me up in the morning, I'll go to shul. So sure enough, in those days, I was out meeting. So literally had to, wake this guy up 6 a.m. and he was there every day, and it wasn't in his, usually it wasn't, like that. I found out later, but his father went, and he pushed himself every day. He went to say Kaddish, and after he got up from Shiva, he went back to Northern California, and I never saw him again. I corresponded, text messages, whatever, but because we found out that his mother lives on our block, so my wife pulled over college for Shabbos and put the kids over to visit, invited them, Matzos for Pesach, all of the mitzvah gereres mitzvah. They made a minion, and from there we developed a kesher involving the family with Yiddishkeit. The mother moved to old age home years later, and my wife took the kids, and it was also enough for my kids. They got to, they didn't. My grandparents are all the way in the East Coast, right? So who did they get to visit? So we went to go and visit this woman. Her name was Bobby Rose, called her, and until her passing, and still, keeping in touch with this family. So Friday we get a call from the sisters that their brother is very sick. He's in the hospital, and they think that it's about to pass. So we didn't know what to do. Video over the phone. So that's what we were going to do. We were going to do like video over the phone. But then Baruch Hashem, we discovered this Rabbi Brod's son up in Northern California. It's Avram. So he was kind enough to drive out there. I don't know how far it was for him, but he went Friday afternoon to this hospital, and he did video with the nifter, with Jerry, Yehuda Mordechai Chaim Dov, and the sisters, they sang him. They said they sang him Yiddish lullabies, Shema with him. And Shabbos afternoon, the Shema went up. And so the interesting thing was that all those years ago that he went to to push himself to look for a minion for his father. They weren't religious, but he went push himself a little more. In the end, that brought him that now his burial, he got a vidui with the rabbi, he got ara with our friend over here. Chaim did a para together with Mr. Bruce Bloom and all of the amazing Kadisha, and brought this yid to proper Jewish burial. And of course now we went after the cemetery to his son. Just bought a new house. Where's the new house? Around the corner from Rabbi Bidel and Chabad. Where is it? Porter Ranch. So as soon as we're leaving, Yitzchak and I were driving out. So we said, okay, we have to be a shliach over here. So we texted around, we found him. And as we're driving down the road, like half a minute away from the house, all of a sudden Yitzchak looks up, there's a menorah right away. The shliach's house is right there. So mitzvah gereris mitzvah, Shem, the sheikh will come, put up mezuzahs, and then the story will continue. So see a mitzvah, someone asks you to make a minyan late at night, whatever it is, don't go to sleep, stop it. You never know.
It's your own benefit.
You never know what's going to happen.
How's the Farbrengen go? Farbrengen. I am The Rebbe Rashab said that the value of being a student of his yeshiva is that you have strength and you have heart. What's the difference between strength and heart? Heart is not, I mean in English, the word heart, I mean the word in Yiddish, heart. Heart means hard. And he said, when you have strength, strength is something to be stronger and stronger. Strength is something which is measurable. You have more strength and less strength. When you talk about something which is hard means that it can't be any hard. It's something which is impregnable, something which can't be changed. Rock solid. It was today, on the 12th of Tammuz, the previous Rebbe's birthday, when I think he was 15 years old. The Rebbe Rashab told his son, at that time, the Rebbe Rashab was staying a few hours away from the city of Lubavitch, and he told his son that he's going to visit Lubavitch, and he wants his son to get up early in the morning to go to mikveh, and they're going to travel together back to the city of Lubavitch. At that time, he was there in this country, in this vacation home. But he said he's going to go. He usually visited home, Lubavitch, every certain times. Meisha, but he's going to. He told him it's a surprise visit. We're going to go and we're going to stop by your mother, your grandmother, Rebbe and Rivka. So the previous Rebbe said, grandmother might get shocked. She may not be ready for our visit. She may get very surprised. She may not be take it lightly. She's an older woman. She's going to see us coming. She's going to wonder what's going on. The Rebbe Rashab said, don't worry. She knows that we're coming. They came to the city of Lubavitch. They went to visit Rebbe and Rivka. And Rebbe and Rivka she spoke to Rebbe Rashab for a few minutes. And then she came out and she gave a bracha to her grandson, the previous Rebbe. And then they went to the oil. There in the city of Lubavitch is a resting place of the Tzemach Tzedek and the resting place of Rebbe Marash. And next to the oil, like the oil of our Rebbe, there's a shul adjacent to the oil. So Rebbe Rashab opened up the ark in the shul next to the oil, and he spoke to his grandfather and great grandfather in front of the previous Rebbe, his father and grandfather in front of the previous Rebbe, and he said one teaching which I want to share with you. The teaching is on the pasuk Chagra Beis Masneha. Chagra Beis Masneha means, it's a pasuk in Eishes Chayil, in the song that we sing on Friday nights. It says that a Jewish woman, Chagra Beis, all the praise of a Jewish woman. And the praise of a Jewish woman is not only the praise to Jewish woman, it's also praise to every Jew, which is called the wife of Hashem. So what's the praise of a Jew who is called the wife of Hashem? Chagra Beis Masneha. She girds her loins with strength. So the Rebbe Rashab told the previous Rebbe, when Avram Avinu brought his son Yitzchak to the Akedah, he brought him to be offered as a sacrifice to Hashem. So he made with Yitzchak a covenant. So he's told his son, I'm making with you a covenant. I'm making a covenant with you that you need to devote yourself to spreading Torah and Yiddishkeit and Chassidus in communist Russia, to helping Jews physically and helping Jews spiritually. But in order to do this, Rebbe Rashab said, you have to have strength. And so what is strength, said the Rebbe Rashab? Strength means what Rabbi Begun and Rabbi brother were talking about the whole night. So what strength means, said the Rebbe Rashab? Strength means Mesiras Nefesh. And then he said, what does Mesiras Nefesh mean? Mesiras Nefesh means this is the way it has to be. It can't be any other way. The serious nefesh doesn't mean you jump off a roof. People think sacrifice means that you're ready to die. That's not what sacrifice means. Rebbe Rashab said sacrifice means that you say it has to be this way. It can't be any other way. As long as there's another way, even if you decide to choose one way or the other because of whatever benefit you think there is, that's not called sacrifice. Sacrifice means you say to yourself, it has to be this way, and it can't be any other way. And to do that, that comes from a very deep place in the neshama. That comes from the deepest place in the neshama. There are times there are different kinds of challenges that Hashem gives every person in their lifetime. But there's some kinds of challenges which are called in Hebrew, in Yisrael, which means a test. A test. In order to survive a test, you cannot survive a test using your logic. You can't survive a test using your heart. The only way to survive a test is only by reaching deep within yourself, not looking at what's outside, because you look outside when you're, unlike in the comic books, when a person is going to a test, there's a narrator. Narrator says, our hero is now about to go into a test. You know you're going to a test. Unlike in the, when you're watching a soap opera and they do a test of the emergency broadcast system, you have heard a test of the emergency broadcast system. You know what I'm talking about? Okay. But when you're in life going through a test, there's no announcement you're going through a test. You don't know you're going through a test. Not only that, when you look at the test, you know what you see. You don't see you're going through a test. You know what you see there's no way out. That's what you see. When he's going through a test, you see there's no way out. This is something that Hashem has given our generation more than previous generations in certain ways. Different kinds of tests than the generation before, perhaps, but tests nonetheless. And so in order to overcome a test, you can't overcome a test. You can't overcome a test using your mind or your heart or anything, or looking outside of you. The only way to overcome the test is, as Rebbe said in Yud Beis Tammuz Farbrengen. There's one Farbrengen Beis Tammuz, the first Beis Tammuz Farbrengen of our Rebbe. After the Farbrengen, the Rebbe gave everyone mashke. The Rebbe told each person, Toikev atzmi, bittul atzmi. Strength from your core, devotion from your core. Toikev atzmi, bittul atzmi. That's the key. Where do you want to go? Yud Beis Tammuz. Each of us has our own mission in spreading Yiddishkeit. We have our own mission in our own service of Hashem. Yud Beis Tammuz and Yud Gimel Tammuz are two different phases of the redemption. Yud Beis Tammuz is a personal redemption. The previous Rebbe, he was told he's going to be free. Yud Gimel Tammuz was when he actually became free and everyone could see that he was free. A similar way, Yud Beis Tammuz is about our own personal service of Hashem and going beyond our limitations in our service of Hashem, our own limitations. Yud Gimel Tammuz is about breaking new frontiers and trying to spread Torah and Yiddishkeit to places where it hasn't gone yet. But whether we're talking about our own personal service of Hashem within ourselves of Yud Beis Tammuz, or whether we're talking about Yud Gimel Tammuz, how it reaches the outside, is one thing that we have in common today with what the Rebbe Rashab told the Friedrich Rebbe at that time. Until Mashiach comes, the strength of the Jewish people is la yichba v'layla neira. Their candle does not get extinguished at night, no matter what kind of darkness there is in the world. A Jew's candle, a Jew's Mesiras Nefesh, a Jew's devotion to Hashem does not get extinguished. Why? Because there's toikev atzim bittul atzim. We think there's no way out, but the truth is that we have inside to overcome the test, the challenge that Hashem gives us, only one way. So look within yourself and to say that there's no other way. L'chaim, there's no other way. We're going to Geula. There's no other way other than Geula. L'chaim, where do you go? Where do you hide? Where do you hide? No, meneer, kom her. Hij zegt, wat hebben we again? Wat hebben we again?
What is man?
Amaya dimayina, amayina na 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 na. Maya, look now when we're ready. Amaya dimayina. We're ready. When we're ready. Everyone has to go. Na 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 na.
Babe, I don't know how to do this gift. Add this to my.
na 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 na. Ah, ya yedimayina. Terera, ya, ya, ya. Ara, ra, ra, ya, ma. Terera, ya, ya, ya. Ara, ra, 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 hey, ya, 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 ra, ra. Ah, na, 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 ya, ma, ya, na. Ah, ya, na. Ma, ya, ya, ma, ya, na. Yo, you, ay, la, 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 ya, ya, ara, ya, rama, ya, na, ya, rama, We have with us tonight Rabbi Meir Rifkin, who loves introductions, but we're not going to do that for him. Go ahead, Rabbi Meir.
Why you not forgive me personal introduction? I don't know.
Rabbi Meir Rifkin is a sheikh of the Rebbe, whatever, Rifkin, Rabkin, whatever.
Yes.
Meir is gekommen da. Oh, sorry, Meir Rifkin, sorry about that. Rabbi Meir Rifkin, thank you very much for coming. Rifkin, sorry, I don't much like
That's why we don't want introductions. He's introducing somebody else. L'chaim, l'chaim. Actually, remember last time I had it for Farbrengen. I know you had many Farbrengen. Hey, David. Right before the pandemic, you had also your machines here. You were ahead of your game. You already had your machines hooked up, waiting for the pandemic. He had his video. I remember this. I remember deja vu. The video came in front. This thing came here. He moved it around. He doesn't know my name, but he's moving the machine. He's organized. All right, l'chaim, everybody. Good Yom Tov. Today's Yud Beis, Yud Gimel Tammuz. I heard that Moshe saying when I walked in that there's a difference in Yud Beis and Yud Gimel, and that there's really no difference, or there is a difference. I don't know if you spoke about it, maybe, but I don't know.
Start over. We're starting all over again.
But
It's time we're starting over again.
But
Ready to start over.
I heard words that were very, very powerful. I'll say l'chaim. I'm holding it. I don't want to just hold it. L'chaim. But I heard speaking, and I heard if I bring in earlier today from Tavshin Lamed Ches, Yud Beis Tammuz. So it was shortly after, I guess, that I was English loaded. Saying English, no? Oh, in 1978, I thought Tavshin Lamed Ches was already adopted in the English language. But clearly not. But anyways, the Rebbe was talking, and the Rebbe was sharing that it was Yud Beis Tammuz and the night between Yud Beis and Yud Gimel Tammuz. And the Rebbe described that the series of the events that took place with the Frierdiker Rebbe, with the previous Rebbe, Rebbe's father-in-law wasn't a one-day event. It was a series of events, and I found it very interesting that first the Frierdiker Rebbe went to Kostroma, which I'm sure you mentioned. And then when he came to his exile city, you have to report over there. You have to report that you're a prisoner. I spent a year in Rostov on the Don River. Had the great merit of meeting the Russian culture head on in the face. I remember I went to buy a can of Coke one of the first days I was in Rostov, and they asked me for my passport and registration. I said, I'm buying a can of Coke. I don't know if we're misunderstanding each other, but this, as I gate this is how it goes over there. You register, you breathe, you register. You ask Stalin if you have permission for this today. So clearly, what? Spent the full year, 2005. This is modern Russia. I'm not so old. Exactly. They only take Bitcoin now. Anyways, l'chaim. Point is that the Frierdiker Rebbe showed up at the offices to report himself as an asir, as a prisoner. And when he showed up, because he's new to the city, to Kostroma, they told him, actually, your name is not on the list. And we heard, in the Rebbe's expression, we heard Gavaya me'al Gavaya, ad Gvayim al Kulam. The Rebbe says they heard from the Heiche fensters, from the on the top, meaning from the epitome of all authorities, that you're supposed to be going free. And it's interesting, you're listening to the Rebbe's Farbrengen, the Rebbe seems to be alluding, Gvayim al Kulam, higher Shemer Gvayim Hashem, that all the episodes you see happening in life, there's an outside source to it all, or an inside source, but a higher source moving all the wheels, which obviously is coming from the Eibishter himself, God himself, and you are no more a prisoner. So fine. So what does Yud Gimel Tammuz have to come in? The 13th of Tammuz, you already have the Beis Tammuz. So the Rebbe explains in that Sikha, that was in the 12th of Tammuz. That was in Yud Beis Tammuz in Kostroma. He arrived in Kostroma on Yud Beis. He arrived in Gimel, so maybe he had to go report on Yud Beis.
Every week that report.
Oh, so that's the bus.
It was a week and a half.
Every week that
Every week they want to report.
and the weeks were not divided the same way. Yeah.
8 days.
10-day weeks, right?
No, the Shabbos is part of the regular week, and Sunday is part of the regular week.
Okay, but for whatever reason, it was on Yud Beis Tammuz he was going to report.
Sunday they go.
How long was it in system? A week and a half?
Come Gimel until you no.
You go to
What?
Right.
Yeah, but left after he came to you. Either way, he came on Yud Beis Tammuz, he came and he had to report himself to the offices, right? That's what he wanted. And that's when he heard that he's going free. That's when he heard he's going free. And so they told us, so he said, okay, great, he's free. They told him in the office. This I'm sure 100% sure.
But they couldn't officially for the following day because
It was vacation. They couldn't write it. The Rebbe said they couldn't write it and make it official with the stamp until the next day. They told him come back, but they already notified him that he's free. So in his experience, this is what the Rebbe's word is, and in his experience, he was already a free man, and it was just about translating that experience into reality. What?
A formality.
But it's not just a formality; it's actually furthering the idea, almost like descending it, almost like taking it into the real world. Like Frierdiker Rebbe has his own private world, and then there's the world, as we know, the letter the Frierdiker Rebbe sends the next year, in Tafresh Peches, right, where he says, "I'm not the Frierdiker Rebbe writes beautiful clouds, beautiful expressions." But before that, he was called Shemer Mitzvahs. The Frierdiker Rebbe writes, everybody's being freed, but everybody in a sense wasn't free because they didn't even know they were being free. The Frierdiker Rebbe heard that he's free. Everybody around him heard that he's free, but he's in Kostroma. I don't even know. Now I saw on COL, they sent people to Kostroma to see that it actually exists, this city. But where is it? If you fall off this, if you take an Elon Musk rocket ship to get there, who's with Kostroma? But it's very, very far, Galus, obviously. And the Rebbe describes that Yud Beis and Yud Gimel Tammuz are two phenomena. There's an individual personal experience, which is the Yud Beis Tammuz experience when you are by yourself, and you're experiencing something internally, whether it's growth in whatever character or Torah or freedom that you're experiencing. The Gimel Tammuz when you take it to the world. And then the Rebbe said something very, very interesting, which is what triggered when I was hearing the Moshe talk about Taikif Atzmi and Bittul Atzmi. And you say them, they look like opposites, but they're the same. Because it's Bittul Atzmi, this type of selflessness or the lack of self, or at least not obsessing over the self. That's to be step number one, which gives you a certain taikif, which gives you a certain starkheit, which gives you a certain strength. Why am I saying this? Because the Rebbe asks an interesting question. The Rebbe says the night in between the 12th and the 13th of Tammuz is sort of like a combining night. It's a bridge. It's a bridge between this experience of the 12th of Tammuz and the 13th of Tammuz. And in a way, they're opposite. They're like an opposite experience. First, the person is focused on himself internally, and then berega kememra, which means like in a second, you want him to flip, and you want him to go out. Now, people have personalities, okay? People have styles, and they have things that work for them. And you look around, you're like, this is not my type, right? This is not my type. And almost everybody in the room could say either Yud-based Tammuz is not their type. They're not a recluse. They're not a private person. They're not a gastrama. They're out there in the thing. They like to engage with people. Or the opposite. They could say, I'm not a people's person. I'm a quiet person. I like to stay alone. And comes the night between Yud Beis and Gimel Tammuz, and it tells you have to, so to speak, tap into or you have to feel the energy of both days. There's the Yud Beis Tammuz Avodas Atzmai, just that you're free, and then there's Yud Gimel Tammuz when the authorities are signing it and putting it into papers and it's affecting the world. How do we do that? So the Rebbe says the trick of the whole thing. What's the trick of the whole thing? And this is the juice of but this is the
juice. That's the juice to get
the juice. So why only you get the juice? Introduce them. Introduce all the people. Introduce them. Make introductions. Give Alam rest. Everybody l'chaim. Give everybody l'chaim. Why is it sits here?
It's
It's a full house, but it's in l'chaim. No big.
It's a school family one of the after about Beis.
But l'chaim with the juice.
Beis goy gemoged.
The Rebbe says this is the whole point. That a yid, this is very interesting because the whole discussion is a discussion of freedom.
And it's just Rabbi Meir is telling us the juice of what we need to take over to home tonight. We've been sitting here for a couple of hours, and right now we're going to get the secret of what we need to take home tonight. It's not his own, something coming from on high. It's coming from the Rebbe. Let's get involved. But before we get involved, let's sing a nigun until we make sure we're vessels for it.
Just introduce me.
No, not that one. Oh, oh yeah, like it. Oh yeah, Tell me, time for a bus tomorrow. Time for When that might have, then we'll start Farbrengen. Before we start might please give attention to the mayor, cover the mayor.
Kyle, make it fast.
No,
I
don't
realized-
fast.
No, I realized already that I could get introduced and disintroduced in 1 minute, and it's my Shem Gavayim, my Gavayim. It's fine, I can handle it. But
Mayor. Yeah, let me interpret what I'm saying. I want to make sure you don't go away before you speak, and everyone tell them, don't worry, we might.
But I want to share with you all a story, and I want to get to the point. Excuse me. Chaim, a month ago, and I hopefully connected to I think what the Rebbe's message was in that Farbrengen in 1978. A month ago, a month ago, or a month and a half ago, a young man, 22 or 23 years old, reached out to me, and out of nowhere, I live in the valley, in a neighborhood called Granada Hills. It's
It's somewhere in Jersey.
I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why people in the city think that the way to the valley is a lot longer than the way from the valley. Somehow it's like many more miles to get there. They don't come from the city to the valley. We're expected to come always like with this, but they don't move from this. But people leave that alone. We handle it all. What? We're very far in the valley. Anyways, and a young man, and it's next to Northridge where the earthquake was. Remember the earthquake? Maybe people remember these places. What? Yeah, I know that. I heard. I wasn't here, but and a young man reached out to me, and he says to me, "I'm moving to another rock star neighborhood called Porter Ranch. Anybody knows what Porter Ranch with the gas leak? We were inflicted with all the makas over there. We had the earthquake with the gas leak coming in. That's why, right? And anyways, and he reaches out to me. He says he just moved to Porter Ranch, which Bechlal is a pella. Bechlal a wonder. In general, it's a wonder because he's young. He's under the age of 70. He doesn't belong in the valley. He belongs where there's actually lights on past 9 p.m. and things like that. And stores and all these other wonderful items. But he's there. He's living there with his girlfriend in an apartment in Porter Ranch behind the vineyards. They built these new vineyards. He's living there, and he's Jewish, and he found my name, and he wants me to put up mezuzahs by him. So I said, sure, it's my pleasure. Thinking in my head, the one person under 80 here, I'm gonna go meet him right away, right? And but by the time the night comes when we get scheduled to come put up the mezuzahs, he texted me, my friend Gabe already put them up. I'm like, oh, here goes the opportunity. I mean, mezuzahs is not a massive skill. It's a little secret, by the way. It's not a massive skill. I think the Rav has to come put up mezuzahs. There's a couple of things that the rabbis do that we would give it away and say that really you don't need a rabbi. Whatever. But these mezuzahs is simply a bracha. You can put it up yourself. You don't need to be certified with any. It's not a mile. Let's just put it that way. It's not a mile. Everybody could do it. It's not and so his friend must have given away the secret, and he put up the mezuzah by himself by the time it's 5 p.m. So but he says to me, actually, I still want to meet you. So I said, okay, we're back on. And when should we meet? Tomorrow morning. So the next morning I come and I meet him. His name is Zachary, and he works in solar. It's another business which is flourishing, solar. and he sells solar and he installs the solar and he works for a big company and it's wonderful. And in the valley we have a lot more sun, by the way, than the city, so you could make a lot of solar. And he's telling me that we meet. And he tells me we're meeting. How you doing, etc. We talk, and he's pumped, and he says, I started doing Maida'ani in the morning, and I put on tefillin with him then, and we said, we have to get you your own pair of tefillin, which we just got now, and we have to do more things. He's like, yeah, because I feel very grateful and thankful to Hashem, and wonderful, and he's going to give some tzedakah. I was like, that's great that you feel grateful, and right away give tzedakah. That's good. That's a good connection, and we're talking more and more, Farbrengen. And fine, so I'm in touch with him. The next week, I text him, I text him on Thursday, I think, great, let's invite him for Shabbos dinner. Let's invite him for Friday night. Text him on Thursday, and I say to him, Zachary, I hope you're having a great week. Do you want to join for Shabbat dinner with your girlfriend? You could come from the vineyards, you could come over and join for Shabbos dinner. And he says, actually, Rabbi, I'm having my whole week is upside down. I'm barely breathing and I'm barely sleeping. This guy was in front of me last week, confident, solid, stable, happy. And Taich Shavua, 1 week, everything's. I say to him, what happened, Zachary? He says, don't ask. Could we meet tomorrow? So I go to him and we meet on Friday morning. And he tells me a horrible story. He says he's a group of guys, 4 young guys, and they're all doing well and they're living the high life. He's selling and he's buying and everything. And one of the boys, his name is Kyle. I'll say his last name. His name is Kyle. He's living also in Chatsworth or Northridge. And he was partying or whatever he was doing. And his mother found him on the couch the next morning. He's not here. So it's Kamuvan, one of the, understandably, one in the group is it's shaking up all of them. He says, I'm questioning my very existence. I'm questioning everything, which is obviously very, very normal. So we talked for a very long time. We talked for 45 minutes for an hour. Where's God and what's happening to Kyle and where's Kyle now and this and everything. And fine. So we're all in masks. We're all in masks, heavily decked in the masks. It's the valley. We're still wearing the masks over there. And he's talking and I'm talking and I tell him at a certain point, I don't even know why, I tell him, so Kyle, was he Jewish? He says, well, actually very interesting. Kyle has a very, very Hispanic name. Like very Hispanic, like Chavez, right? So let's just use that name. So Kyle Chavez. So it sounds like, so he says to me, actually, Kyle's father wasn't Jewish, but interesting, Kyle's mother was Jewish. I say, wow, unbelievable. Did he know that? Did he even know that? So he says to me, really, actually, it was never a factor in his life. I say, do you know he ever even put on tefillin once or something? Did he have him? He said he never had a bar mitzvah because his father wasn't Jewish. But he says to me, one time, he says, a rabbi walked into the office where we work, and he was asking everybody, and he was talking to the owners who are Israeli. And Kyle mentioned that his mother is Jewish. The rabbi grabbed him and said, "We're going to make a bar mitzvah." And he put on tefillin and whatever. And fine. So I'm saying to him, "Wow." He said, "Actually, I have a video here." He says, "I have a video here of Kyle putting on tefillin. It's giving me a lot of comfort." He said, "It's giving me a lot of comfort. I'm watching it now. I sent it to his mom, and his mom is telling me that it's very meaningful to her." And because we were all he says, we were all in the office and we were all excited, etc. So I say, "Could I see the video? I'm curious. I want to see, I want to see who's this guy." Hey, I take the video. I give one look at the video. And I say to Kyle, I say, "Do you know who this rabbi is?" He says, "No, I don't know." I take off my mask. He looks at me and he says to me, "Oh my God, that's you." I said, "Kyle, I remember this is Pacific Sky, the Solar Sky. This is before the pandemic." He says, "Yeah, Rafi." I say, "Rafi and Daniela Pagos." I said, "Yeah." I said, "I can't believe it that you call me literally a week before this whole thing happens. And you tell me about this guy, Kyle, and that his mother is happy. Anyways, we get in touch with his mother, and we're still in touch with the family. But we talk about Shomer Gavayim al Gavayim, which means that there's what does it mean? Well, go figure it out. Go figure it out. At a certain point, Taikif Atzmi comes from Bittel Atzmi, means to say, when you stop trying to figure it out, and you just realize that there's a Shomer Gavayim al Gavayim, that there's somebody who is hired that's running the whole show. In the beginning, there's a story that happened. I can show you the video in my pocket. And there's a story that I about business, which is in Chatsworth, and a person that he put on tefillin, his neshama left in Tara for whatever reason. He's never gonna know, never gonna figure out. It's not gonna settle anything. It's not gonna nothing's gonna be settled from this. We said before, the Rebbe says, how's it possible that a person flips? A Yid, a Jew, is a nimna hanimnois. A Jew, a Yid, every person here is demanded to walk a tightrope, tight wire, whatever it's called, through life, and to flip from Yud Beis Tammuz to Yud Gimel Tammuz, from one kind of avodah to another kind of one kind of service Hashem to another kind of service Hashem, which he could say, it's not my personality. How do I do this? I'm not this type. I'm that type. How do I fit into this? Where do I get the koyach to do this? Where does the taikif atzmi come from? Where does this power come from? And the power comes from the Rebbe's words in that Farbrengen of 1978. A Yid at this point, a Yid is not shaykh. He's not able to relate to Avdus. Avdus means servitude. Everybody in this world is servant. Everybody. From the freest American who has 4 Trump flags with snakes on the back of his pickup truck is in servitude. You know what he's in servitude? He's in servitude to Elam Hazeh. He's in servitude to the rules of nature of this world. But a Yid, when the Eibusher was mighty Isam in Mitzrayim, as the Friedrich Rebbe said, I think in the train station, when he said, our neshamas are not shaykh. It's not possible anymore. It's like fitting a needle into an elephant into that needle. Not shaykh. It's not possible anymore. He's not in servitude. He's free. Shtari kaidim. God says he's my servant. He's not. Nobody else is able to control him. What does that do for him? What does that do for him? That gives him an ability to transcend all the things. I mean, the Friedrich Rebbe. Think about the Friedrich Rebbe for a second. I know we have a dot Rebbe. Think about the Friedrich Rebbe for a second. He's standing. In 1927, he's facing the communists. Just a shock. In 1927, he's facing the communists, and they're telling him, "We're going to educate you. We're going to teach you. We're going to break you." And they're pulling out revolvers and all the stories, and they're telling him, "We're going to teach you, and we're going to push you, and we're going to hit her." And he tells them, and he makes a chlata inside himself, "I'm not budging." A few years later, he lands in America. I mean, just the total culture shock with people would collapse. I mean, there's still, many immigrants who can't adjust to the difference. They're in Moscow and the Kremlin, and then they're in the United States, right? And then in the United States, what is the first thing he says? You're also not going to change me. America's no different. So you just think about it. Where does he get this flip? It's no matter what, because there's a certain taikif atzmi, which means an inner strength, which comes from, he's not shy after servitude. Shtari kaidim. He has an address. He has a connection. He's already a servant of God. This is what, if you think about it, how is it possible that a Yid is able to do that? It comes from an inner strength. It comes from an inner strength that comes from neshama, nefesh, hashenis, the Yisrael, he chelek al the second soul that the Jew has, which is a godly spark. The Alter Rebbe starts a whole perek with these words. Could have continued perek Aleph, is to tell him what we're talking about here. And I'll finish this. I feel like if you watch Lubavitcher Rebbe, our Rebbe, and you would say, is he a patient man? He's pretty patient. What is the Rebbe's, what would you say was the Rebbe's biggest frustration? Perhaps besides the carrying of Mashiach. What was the Rebbe's biggest frustration? You felt that Rebbe couldn't. I would say, my opinion, but this obviously could be debated, that perhaps the Rebbe's biggest frustration was Pashat getting through to our thick heads. Which topic? Who you are. No. Who you are. How many times, how many times did a person write to the Rebbe and he will, I can't do this. Get somebody better. And the Rebbe has to patiently stand there and educate him. You are chelik alekami mamish. Study kaidem. You're a person who has a ability for nimnam noise. Oxymoron lives inside of you because you're connected to Atzmus. Do you find me one letter where the Rebbe writes to a person? You know what? You need a vacation. You know what? Use a golf course. You don't belong in this business. Think about it. Maybe there was a guy that Rebbe should have met throughout all this history. Maybe that guy came also by the Rebbe, just statistically speaking. 99 people, fine, will underestimate themselves. So one guy, the Rebbe should be able to pick him out and say, you know what, you you should go retire. But the Rebbe's, and the frustration, which every Farbrengen, the Rebbe's trying to tell us, now it's not our fault. I'm not here to come down hard on the hard-working Jew who was stupped here, but his neshama down here in Elam Hazeh, and the whole Elam Hazeh is collapsing on top of his shoulder. I understand. I am not here. Say, but if we could tap into that perspective for a second, you could see where the Yud Beis Gimel Tammuz slip is not a problem. And the Rebbe says, the Yid says, Nasav and Ishma. He doesn't listen to what the Eibush is saying, but well, it's a lav, it's an assay. You have to put on your swimming trunks, you have to put on your fur coat. He's saying, hey, he's saying, I'm ready. You don't even know which clothes you have to pack for this mission. But he says yes to God. Why does he say yes? Because there's a certain taikif, which is the word that Rabbi Levin used, certain strength, a certain inner strength, which comes not human. You could put 14 Trump flags with snakes on the back of your truck. You don't have this kayak. Your muscles could be bulging from all over. The guy didn't have muscles bulging, but he stood in front of the whole communist Russia, and then he lands in America, challenges the whole America. The whole thing is America's not different. You think that he just left Russia. Maybe he found his ally, the United States, my ally. And of course, the United States is not Russia. I'm not an idiot. And it's Medina Shal Chesed. We know this. We're not knocking the United States. We don't have to pull out the flag here. It's not the problem here. But the point is that he has a Taikif Atzmi. You think he has to find his party. Where's his comfort zone? Who's his allies? Like, okay, Russia, he's fighting, but Mistama, he has people in the White House who, he's like their side. You listen to the radio, the Republicans, they all have one shit there, and they all must agree with each other because it's not going to look good if he says the vaccine's a good thing. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit anymore. I mean, so you have to line up with the party because otherwise you have no allies. And other Medini and who's strong enough to stand and say no? I have my own party. I'm my own party. I am my own party. There's no Abdus on me. Feel the Rebbe. 1927, he tells the communists, we're going to see who's going to educate who. He's in their jail in Shpalerka, in Leningrad. He tells them he's going to show them who's going to teach who, and he walks out. And then he lands in the United States. The policemen are taking him. He tells them, by the way, America's no different. What does that mean, America's no different? What does that mean? That means you're not going to touch me. You're not going to touch me. Anyways, l'chaim. We should have a little bit of this take of atzmi.
But how do we have
The juice? It's the juice. What?
How do you hold tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, the next day? How do you want it?
You have to have bittul atzmi. You have to.
You have to.
You want me to continue?
Go ahead.
I don't know. You're losing the crowd. Be in touch. You have to be in touch.
Okay, after my continue, we'll figure out how to hold on to it. But please, guys, the ring hasn't started yet. Don't get confused. It's just a without a ma'ariv, because it's a mitzvah ma'ariv. And after, but you Beis Tammuz, you have to Farbrengen. We're going to start Farbrengen after ma'ariv. First, al micha, al ber nefashos. Any chiyuv here? Das ist nicht mein Herz. Farbrengen nach ma'ariv.
I'm gonna stay.
Okay. Mendel. Well, good to be fasting. Here's what I do tonight. Do tonight. Do tomorrow night. Do Shabbat. No. Amen. Amen. Amen.
You want to put a wrench today? Well, you texted me.
There's a takonim from Kanmenim. When you want to leave Farbrengen, you stay 5 more minutes. Takonim from Kanmenim, from Chassidim, from generations before. After last Kash, we sit down at least for 5 minutes for Farbrengen. Probably. Amen. 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 Ish miram farach mitbarem. Amen. 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 Hine mata yo the blue wire. Hine mata yo Nachamenu. Sheves achim gam yocha. Ararara. Mama. Terera. Mama. La 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 la. Ya ma 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 ya la ya la ya la ya la ya ma 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 Kine matei bo manoni oy sheves achim gam yochad Kine matei bo manoni sheves achim gam yochad Da 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 da, ma 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 ma, da da ya 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 na na na, ma 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 mo ya na na na, da da ya ya la da ya na na na, ma la do ya na na na, da ma 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 mo ya na ya na ya na. I don't make the rules. I'm not one of those people who make rules. I just tell you what the rules are. The rules are the Abish made the world in a way. This I didn't decide it to be this way. That's the way it is. The Abish made the world in a way. And the best part of the soup is the last bit. There's a little bit of soup left. You want to lift up the bowl, but you can't because people are looking. They really should make spoons with straws at the end. So you put the spoon in the bunch. But no one invented it yet. The patent is out there. You can take it. Al says also by Farbrengens. They just made the world in a way you could sit by Farbrengen. You sit down on the Farbrengen and you say, that's not the point. Another half hour, it's also not the point. But if I had a half hour, not the point. And the end of the Farbrengen, they start figuring out they didn't want to go or you're tired. But I just want to tell you, my friends, there's the Farbrengens and there's Farbrengens. Baruch Hashem, we started with a real Farbrengen Beis Tammuz. Now we're to begin the Farbrengen. So, Lashon of John Paul Jones, we haven't begun yet the Farbrengen. So l'chaim, we should begin to Farbrengen Beis Tammuz. We should get involved. L'chaim, For the Abisha told us that we're discussing what the point is, how to hold on to you. Take a fast bit of
Chaim.
There's a letter of the Rebbe about someone who's sitting far by Farbrengen. It's a letter. I'll show it to you tomorrow. Not exaggerating. That's right. Exactly. That's why I'm telling you to come closer. Bad,
They last week, Parshas Kairach, Parshas Chukas, where it speaks about the famous episode where Moshe Rabbeinu, it's the rock, for whatever reason, it's one of the most lebedik in the Gunim. What was it? What was the guy with it? What was it here before? That you sing lebedik? Sitting here before the whole time. Down my yeah. And he said Allah Salahach, for whatever reason, is one of the most lively songs. You could still see the video storefront. It's next to the Van Nuys Airport, which happens to be one of the busiest. By the way, that's another thing we're famous for in the valley. We have a very busy private airport, not a public airport, but a private one. So if you ever make it, you might end up in the valley. So nothing to look forward to. Maybe you shouldn't even try to make it. All you'll do is end up in the valley with us. But anyways, leaving that aside, he has a business, a flooring business. And I walked into his office one time and I told him I was launching into my Dvar Torah. So you know, when I come with my things to say, I don't expect to be abruptly cut off and he's gonna give me a Dvar Torah. But this is what happened this week. I started telling him, Shaul, you know, it talks about how Moshe Rabbeinu hit the rock and he hit the rock. And because of that, Israel, and it's terrible. And you know, I asked him, I say, why would Moses do that? Why would Moshe Rabbeinu do that? It's a pretty, I don't know, he's dumb, but it's not, you know, he's in sync with God. He knows what ticks God's buttons and how this system works, right? He's not like uneducated, ignorant. Moshe Rabbeinu knows exactly. And if he has an agenda to make it into the land of Israel, all he has to do is talk to the Rav. So we could just say he made a mistake, but so okay. But Shaul says Pashut Mod. Very simple. So I didn't want to even stop, but he didn't let me. He said Pashut Mod. So I said, what's Pashut Mod? For sure not Pashut Mod. I said, every Mephir is just talking about it, but to him, in his hardwood shop, it's Pashut Mod. So I say to him, what's Pashut Mod? He says, right. You think Moshe Rabbeinu told me half English, half Hebrew? You think he had nothing to do? So I said, what do you mean he had nothing to do? He's taking care of Jewish people. He says, why are you talking to a rabbi in the first place? Why is he talking to the rabbi in the first place? Do you have nothing to do? No one else is talking to him? I said, he needed the water. He tells me, why you need water? He's going fishing. So I said, this is how the conversation is going. So I said, the Jews are thirsty. He says, He says, you have to understand. Moshe Rabbeinu is leading the Jewish people. This is a Yid. I didn't tell this to him, and I don't even know if I saw it anywhere. He says, Moshe Rabbeinu has a bunch of people around him, his little kids, and they're thirsty. To Damien Latzmach, he says, imagine it. You have little children, they're thirsty. They're old people, they're not going to make it a few more hours. You think Moshe Rabbeinu has time to tell the Rav, Mr. Rav, how are you? How are you, Mr. Moses? And they're going to have a conversation. And what brings you here, maybe you want to bring source some water. He says, hey, what's mine? People are thirsty. So he hits the rock. But anyways, at their hair from a Jew is sitting here, you see right there, his look is already penetrating through the guy tells me Moshe is there to get water for the Jews. In Lozman, he's going to make one meeting, and the meeting's going to be for another meeting, and he's going to introduce himself to the rock, and the rock's going to ask him, who are you? And it's going to do a whole thing back and forth, and meanwhile, you're going to lose a couple of units. Can't do this. He hits the rock, bring water, Achshav, now, water, Mayim, you need water. Anyways, I thought it was a nice part, but I didn't see it anywhere. Where I did see though was, and this I feel like connects very much, is a lot of, I don't know if a lot, but one of the main Mefarshim say that Moshe Rabbeinu's problem in that episode was his language. Where he said, Shimon HaMayim. I don't know, is it Keva?
The Ramban,
a lot of Rishonim, they say that when he spoke to the rocks first, and no water came out, and he spoke to the wrong rock or whatever it was, and the Yidden started murmuring, he lost it. And he said the words Shimon HaMayim, which is in Turkish. He said, listen there, you rabbis. And fine. So that's the problem. The problem was that he expressed this feeling, and because of that. But even that, where does that come from? What was he trying to do? What was he trying to do to make sure and you could, because of course he doesn't make mistakes, he's measured. So you just can't just say he got angry at one time and that was it. Yes, Shloimeh. You could say perhaps that it's the same frustration you're talking about. Moshe Rabbeinu is walking with Am Yisrael. He knows what they're made of, and they're not behaving that way. He knows we're talking about a nefesh, Hashem is Israel, he's able to come. He knows that if he could only hit the rock to come out of mine, right? And he knows, and he says, Shimon HaMayim. It's about time. It's that same frustration, perhaps, where the one thing you could hear almost, the one thing which the Rebbe, so to speak, needs us to do is get into our heads of who you are. You're not just following. You have a certain type of action. You have a certain strength, inner strength, which is not coming from anything else. It comes from a direct into yourself. And he's trying. I mentioned this trying for years, and the Yidden they don't recognize themselves. He's not angry. He's not angry. It's a frustration with the lack of recognition. The Rebbe stands there and says, "Tut al the Rebbe can't do it." What's happening? I mean, had enough. I think God, I just really say, I had enough. I'm done. I'm out. The Rebbe sees the pieces. And the truth is, it's possible to say that I have a friend who was once, he told me, he was once really upset at something in his shlichus, in his job, whatever it was. And he decided, this is mamish a story from, I don't know, he told it to me 4 years ago, 5 years ago, but way after Tammuz. Way. And he says he sat down, he's going to write a letter to the Rebbe, and he's quitting. Whatever he was doing, he's quitting. So maybe it's there. He's writing a letter to the Rebbe, and he is out. And he starts to write, but it bothers him to write. It bothers him to write that he's out. So he starts writing maybe this, that, and then he can't even finish the letter. So this is the story. He tells me he puts the letter into the Igris, which he has to the next time, and he opens it right there. He doesn't finish, doesn't sign his name, doesn't anything, he just puts it in. He opens up the Igris, and it's a letter to I remember what he told me, but it's either to somebody who worked for Chabad or something like that in the earlier years. And the person writes, I have a picture of the letter, so I don't have second, not a problem. So send it to me. But the Rebbe writes to that person the following words, I remember very clearly. When you tell me you want to leave, first of all, the nest. No one's even like talking about the nest. It's just a message. We're not even talking about the nest. I was like, look at Balak and Bilam. Like, we're beyond that. Like, the donkey starts to speak, and instead of like Balak saying, Bilam saying, whoa, let's deal with this first. We're speaking. Like, yes, conversation. He says, why are you hitting me 3 times? He starts answering him. Like, first freeze, recognize there's a nest over here. No, he's right into the conversation. The donkey's talking. Well, because you're not walking. The conversation is like, freeze, stop, pause the video. Donkey's on top. Nobody's mad. So the letter is, that's not even the nest. The nest is the message. The Rebbe writes to this person, and you say the one, and this is not something like this. Bericha or Einze Ela Nesiga. It's sort of like a retreat from the front lines, which is only allowed, the Rebbe says, basically, in the content of the letter, in two way fun. Eifin Aleph. Eifin Aleph is if what? You know the letter?
No, to English.
Way number one is if the job is done. Okay, that's easy. The Rebbe says that you could leave. Sure, the job is done. What does that mean? And way number two is if he's maxed out all his abilities and he needs somebody else or something. The Rebbe says, and what's clear for sure is you know, you're familiar with this letter? What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
English.
And both of them, you didn't even start, meaning you're not close to finishing the job. Because the job is not when it's done. When the sheriff's here, the job is done. And number two, you found someone better. What? And you maxed out, you're already done, you're retired, you're dead. What are we talking about? This idea, you know, this is the same thing that Moshe Rabbeinu, I believe, the same thing Moshe Rabbeinu is saying. He's angry, doubtingly. Shimon HaMoed. We're talking to Nefesh Elokis over here. And he's asking, what do I do? What do I do? L'chora, Rabbi Levin said, we have to figure out how do we, again, we're all on the same team here. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes people come to the Hamas, they start complaining. What's with God? Is this God and you? I am not God's attorney. He doesn't pay me enough. I'm not here to defend him. You're not going to ask me why this happened to me. I'm on your team. Okay. Shouldn't have happened, never happened. It's not going to happen. Finish. So let's first of all establish this. I'm not here to criticize us. I'm here to try to figure out if it's possible that we could tap into that perspective that they ever had of us. That's the question. And l'chora, it's apicursus today. It's not possible. Right? Am I wrong?
Right.
Right. So if they ever say this, the Moshe Rabbeinu is saying this, Shimon HaMoed, it's in a bad way. He's trying to crack something here. He's trying to crack something. It's not working. 40 years he's talking to the Yid, he's telling them who they are. Where's the water going to come from? Shimon HaMoed. Yeah. Take a story with the Alter Rebbe. One of the most powerful stories with Alter Rebbe. I think it's Alter Rebbe. Whatever. Rabbi Levi for sure knows the story. One of the Rebbeim, the class that comes in, he says everything's going wrong. This is going wrong. This is going wrong. This is going wrong. He's suffering, and there's not marriage, and there's no kids, and he has no money. It's terrible, and he can't even serve Hashem. Of course not. And the Rebbe tells him, Alter Rebbe tells him, tells him, look out, do that. Your husband dies there. You say everything what you need, but you're not talking what you need it for. So if you look at what it hits your mind, you push it, most of the off for a shot. Poor guy is already down. You're taking it, right? The guy's coming to you, tells you he has no money. He has no money. No, call you because I go who you try to say. In general, who are you? Because you shouldn't have been thinking about yourself, so you're even worse than you came in. You're even worse than you came in because you came in and you're at least holy because you're like so broken. But let me tell you, you're so of this world, not to have a Haba, because this world we already established. You told me it's messed up, and you're not doing your kavanah, so you're messed up in El Haba also. The guy, it's not becoming of even a regular person. The guy comes to you, you kick him right there. What are you doing? And somehow, some way, it released something in this person. He was a different person afterwards. The question is why? We can analyze it. Shimon HaMoed. Why? So l'chora, what happened was there was a shift. Probably it seems like there was a shift. There was a shift in this person's perspective of himself. He looked at himself weak. He looked at himself, I have needs. Not you looked at himself selfish and then you found out how selfish you are. He looked at himself weak. He looked at himself, I need this, I'm suffering. What's going to be? And the Alter Rebbe told him, you're so not that you don't even deserve Rahmanis right now because you're not even, you with one move, you're out of this. Yeah, you have a Nefesh Elokis, which is Shaykh, the Rebbe says in that the Rebbe is not talking about Rabbeinu. The Rebbe is talking in that in 1978. The Rebbe says Shaykh Ta'avdus. He's not Shaykh. The Abish took him out of Mitzrayim. He's done. This ship is sailed. He is no longer able to be in servitude. You could have the biggest, strongest guy with the most money. He's in Olam Hazeh. He's under the rules of the nature. Simple. So he could be in charge of every other basar v'dam that there is, every other human being of flesh and blood. He is still in servitude. This force is stronger than him. But a yid, the minute the Abish took him out, God took him out of Mitzrayim, that ship is sailed. That ship is sailed. And it seems to me that that's what occurred to that chassid. He had that, something shifted. And it seems that that's what the Rebbe has been. I mean, again, you look for one letter or one interaction where the Rebbe tells a person, "You're not made for it. You know what? You're really not made for the job." Doesn't happen. Why not? Can't find one guy who's not made for the job, simply doesn't belong there. People get fired every day. What is this? A feel good Lubavitch? We don't fire Lubavitch. We're made out of love. What is this? Fired. How does Trump? You're fired. You don't belong. We have an operation. Bring Mashiach. It's the biggest operation ever going to be, right? The guy's in the way. Fire him. Why did it never happen? That's all about love. Love. What is this? Jam videos? All love. It's truth. The Rebbe's not love. The Rebbe's truth. It's emes. And if the Rebbe sees that there's a neshama here on which is it's nuclear, will you tell him he's not shaykh to do it? It's a lie. He doesn't lie. Emes. So I think that if you ask specifically what it is to hold on to it, it's probably a certain. How do you get some of that perspective? That's, I guess, your question. How do you get some of that perspective? There's probably only one way. There's probably only one way to get a little bit of that perspective, and that's probably through his kashrus. I don't think there's another way. I saw when I was waiting on the line for the Gimel Tammuz. Anybody else went to Gimel Tammuz? Waited 5.5 hours? Yeah, 5.5 hours. Did anybody else do this? Or everybody else?
I went, but didn't wait 5.5 hours.
Tell us the details. Tell us the details. What is it? The VIP list?
I just skipped the line.
And my feet were hurt. 5.5 hours. I said to them, we thank God we have Rambam, Chitas, this, that. Lubavitch has to start Daf Yomi. We get any bigger, we're starting Daf Yomi. What else are you going to do on the line? Even the videos don't go that far. It took you all the way like this. Anyways, the kids are. What? I was reading one of these Kontresim. Yeah, whatever. I never had this. And by the way, you come out broke also because the amount of swipers. What?
And it's Sunday.
This is why my line was very long. Yeah, but I hear now already because again, another carbon like me. Anyways, Kitzer Gadol. I was looking. I took out from my yeah, for sure. Yeah, I spoke with a lot of people, and there was a lot of frustrated people around here, a lot of motive. And listen, the point is that I took out one of these hichainus. You know, when I was the post Gimel Tammuz generation, as were 90% of you. No, I should have. By the way, most of the swipers are Californians. We're loaded here. This is unbelievable. But anyways.
The swipe piece.
The swipe person, the swipe piece. So those with the actual white pieces in the phone, most of them are going to come into places here that I never knew. This is a lot further than the valley, by the way. This place is a lot further than the valley. So I took out a lot of these kontresim, these echainus that I happen to have on my shelf. I realized I have one Tafshin and Hay. The cave is Tafshin and Hay. It's interesting to see the development. I don't know. And Tafshin Ayin Alves, and there was one of these, and they made great kashrus and all these made these wonderful booklets. And in one of the booklets, I saw another pretty sharp, that's why I say this, pretty sharp expression. I think it's either a sikha or a letter. But again, I was about to collapse, so I'm not noticing what's what. And the Rebbe writes over there, you must have his kashrus. It obviously they collected letters on his kashrus. I just happened it was Gimel Tammuz. And the Rebbe writes, you must have his kashrus. Your work is heavy and it's dangerous. The Rebbe writes to this person. It's mesukan ma'id. Without his kashrus, it's not going to work. It's not. It's not going to work. I have all these two slopes in my tone bag. It's not going to work. So, yeah, we could try. We could try to figure out how to hold on to it. But lachura, the hiskashrus come. The perspective shift comes from hiskashrus. We come onto the Rebbe's wagon. There's a lot of people here that could use a little time.
Get some of us. Pass it around at least.
And this maybe explains why. Ala Sela Hachach was almost like the Rebbe's marching niggin. It encapsulates that whole Chassid Rebbe relationship in a certain sense, on a deepest level, which yesh laharech. But that Ala Sela Hachach, because you think about it, it's mamish. It's like it's up there with Nejuritzi Chlopsi. Like what does this niggin even mean? Like you took an episode, Moshe hitting a rock, ends in disaster, ends in absolute disaster, and you made it the most lively niggin that the whole Lubavitch is singing. And I have very little memories from before Tafshin and Dalet. I was 10 in 1994, born in 84, but I did grow up in Crown Heights. And but Simchas Torah is seared, and you that energy of like, whoa, like the whole place is moving azay. And think what the words are. And you're talking about an episode, which is like what? But it's somehow you could expound on it a lot more, but it seems to encapsulate a very deep exchange, and a very deep exposes a very deep bond and recognition of what's going on between the Chassid and the Rebbe. Not a mumcha at all, but perhaps that's the Ala Sela Hachach energy.
Allah Sela Hachach, Allah Sela Hachach, Allah Sela Hachach, Allah Sela
Moses.
Weiter, sagst du. Where's Yitzchak? Yitzchak Hassan Mashkin. Vergessen alle diesen.
All local now. Everything the one here is local.
He's in Torrance.
Torrance fine. Yeah, just use. You can all walk home. Maybe it's just a day.
So he's travel all the way to Sunset. I go right. I show the hills. I mean, we're going. You're saying after I was thinking by Beis Tammuz. You know, are we going?
He's good at this.
It's not was dingen already. It's Farbrengen.
Huh?
Not was dingen is not Farbrengen. Was man dann? Ja, no schlaf. No schlaf. Not again. So Beis Tammuz stuff schon. What do you want to push off? Do I bring you Zion Tammuz? Because I'm before Zion Tammuz, I'm sure it's okay now. But if the Farbrengen Beis Tammuz, as you do Zion Tammuz, then not Farbrengen. Mama moira, mama mama mora, mama mama mama, hey lady, yeah, mama. Mara, oh, Mara, Oh, yeah, yeah, oh, yeah, Oh, Lord, it was Artitsky from Belgium. He said he came home one night and he sees his granddaughter. His granddaughter is in her room and she's going like this. She's talking. She's looking at the wall and she's talking and she says, "And I said Shema today, and I gave tzedakah today." She's talking all the good things she did that day, and every time she says something good that she did that day, she puts her hand down. Not only did I give tzedakah today, but also kids in my class. Shana gave tzedakah today, and Mushka gave tzedakah today, and Zlata gave tzedakah today. Then she says, "Oh, but you know what? Mommy asked me to clean my room. I didn't clean my room right away." She puts on the other hand, other side. And then mommy said, "Throw away the garbage." I didn't throw it away. I did my plate. And then she asked me negavasa, and I took some time to do negavasa. But Chaim went right away to bring negavasa, and so did Vera. Her siblings went. There's no all things that her kids in her class did, and that she did. And then she finishes, and she says, "Oh, Kedusha one, the side of Kedusha one, Mashiach has to come." So her grandfather called her over the next day, and he said, "What was that?" She learned from her teacher told her, "You can do mitzvahs, and mitzvahs at the scale, and when we do a mitzvah, it tips the scale, and Mashiach has to come." She realized Mashiach's supposed to come. So you hear the story, it makes you want to laugh, makes you want to cry, makes you want to laugh because wow, it's so cute. It makes you want to cry because you feel like it's not you. You know, it should be you, but it's not yet you. That's the one of the prophecies of Bilam of the coming of Mashiach is that Karkal Kopane Shes. The Mashiach will destroy all the children of Shes, which are bothering Jewish people. Mashiach will destroy them. So there are different kinds of ways to describe the nations of the world that cause problems to Jewish people. But here the Torah calls children, the world, children of Shes. Why Shes? So Shes means foundation. Mashiach does is Mashiach replaces the foundation of the world. There is the way the world looks naturally. Then there is the emes. The Mashiach comes and he changes the very foundation of the way you look at the world. This is the way the world is. Mashiach comes as nishtase. It's not the way it is. Not the way it is. You look at the world and you figure out how things are supposed to work according to your perspective, comes Mashiach, with Karka Kopnei Sheis, he says, oh, it's the whole foundation. What's the foundation we have in the world? Everyone's different. We're all we're in the same Farbrengen, but all of us are different. But we're all different in how much we have ilmus, shittas, and lakus b'schachos. The world, by a regular person, is natural, and lakus and galing is something which is novel, something which is distant. Everyone different levels on how novel Hashem is, and how distant our perception of Hashem is, and how real the world is to us. Everyone's different in that, and that there's a spectrum of how real the Eibush is to you, and how real the world is to you. But unfortunately, until Mashiach comes, their first reality is the world. And that's why it seems natural to a person to make a phone call for business for that. Halacha is that you're not allowed to make a phone call for business for that. Not like a phone call on Shabbos. No, on Shabbos. Why you can't make a phone call on Shabbos? You think the reason you can make a phone call on Shabbos is because Hashem said so, and therefore it's more important to keep Shabbos, do what Hashem says, than to make money. That's not true. It's also true. That's not why you do it. You know you're not going to make money by making a phone call on Shabbos. Because the Eibush just said that you can't make a phone call for that. You can't make a phone call on Shabbos. The Joseph Hashem says you can't make a phone call on Shabbos. The Eibush just says you can't make a phone call for that. Mail, you're not exempt because phone call for davening for business you can't make. But the Rebbe said that a phone was created. People need to, Moshe's and Torrance needs to get another guy for the minions. You have to call the guy. It's not like you have to call the guy. You're supposed to. That's why the phone was created. The Rebbe said the phone was created to call people for davening. But a phone call for business, you're not allowed to call for davening. Just you can't call on Shabbos. You're not allowed to use your phone for davening. A phone call for business. You're not allowed to. You have to. You need to. You should. You would. You could. Tarnished. But why not? Because now it's Shabbos. Now it's Shabbos. It's for davening. It's Shabbos. So why is it hard for us? It's hard for us. Man, you have to go away. The point is that the karkel b'nei mendel, karkel b'nei means for you and me and for all of us, it means that we adopt Mashiach's reality. What's we adopt Mashiach's reality? And we say that the real reality isn't the way it looks like to our eyes. We push it aside. We go as Rabbi Rivkin was telling us, whatever. My great grandfather, Rabbi Rama, used to say the following mashal. Mashal was like this: a chicken sits on the eggs, right? It sits on their eggs for a long time. Some eggs they hatch and they become chickens. Some chickens die in the egg. You know why? You know why? You don't know why? Because the mother sits on the chickens for a long time. When she finishes, she says to the babies, "Take your head and smash it against the wall as hard as you can." So some chickens like, "You crazy, Mom? I'm not doing that." Another chicken's like, "Mom said, okay, Mom, what do I do?" And they're tapping the head against the wall. "No, you gotta smash your head against the wall." The chicken's like, "No, Mom, it's a wall. You don't smash your head against the wall." "No, you smash your head against the wall." The kid, "I don't want to do that." But you trust Mom. Mom says, "Smash your head against the wall." That's what Rivkin's telling us. Rivkin's telling us we look at ourselves and have our bamis, an animal soul, where we have bodies and we have mistakes. And there's no way that Hashem means us and Hashem wants us and we're going to make a difference. There's no way. What's the way? To take our, like Rebbe said, I did all I can. I'm giving it over to you. Take your head, smash against the wall, and think, what are you going to do to bring Mashiach and from the ears to tail and kim the tikkun? That's your Beis Tammuz. That is your Beis Tammuz. Beis Tammuz is a think to ourselves, there's a day of Geula. How am I going to go out of my limitations and bring the Geula? What am I going to do to make it happen? That's your Beis Tammuz. So we could look at it and say, there's nature, there's a world, there's a big world out there, this is as far as we can go. Or we could say a karkel b'nei sheis. Mashiach comes and Mashiach changes the whole foundation of the world's made of. Mashiach comes and tells us that it's not the way it looks, it's not the truth. The egg, the shell, it's garnished. Take your head and smash it against the wall, you discover the shell's above Maisa. The shell's nothing. And then only then can you live. Only then, if you just take your hand and smash it against the wall, you're able to live. I'll take some of Beis Tammuz. There was one year the Rebbe said everyone should write to the Rebbe 3 things they did since last year Beis Tammuz. One year the Rebbe said everyone should think of 3 things they did, something they did since last year Beis Tammuz. That means Beis Tammuz is the time of the year we're supposed to make a decision that by next year Beis Tammuz you say, I did something. Beis Tammuz is the springboard where things start. The Chaim will take a decision ourselves, where we're going to go this year Beis Tammuz. Chaim then if from Gula. Chaim Rav. Rama Mama Mo Dira Yada Dada Yada Rama Mama Yo Rama Mama Mo Dira Yada 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 Rama Mama 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 Yo Yada 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 Rama Mama Rama Rama Mama 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 Mo Da 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 ma da da ma da da ma da 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 ma da 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 ma da da ma Hey ya 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 yin da da ma ya na ma me ya ma hey ya ma Hey ya ya ma ya ma hey ya hey ya Tira Tira ma 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 Tira Tira ya ma 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 Tira in Ezeritzi Chofsi, Shlois Nami Vodet, Mipayet, Dakra Chamke, in Ezeritzi Chofsi, Shlois Nami Vodet, Mipayet, Dakra Chamke, Ay, 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 mama, ay, 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 ay. Mama, 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 hey, ay, 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 let's go, let's go. Ein bisschen, jetzt gewinnen. Whatever.
Very interesting story. Previous Lubavitcher Rebbe said, but a chosid, and I think how we can learn from this story. There was a Yid that came into Yechidus to the Tzemach Tzedek. And among the things that Tzemach Tzedek told him was Chai Chai Yiducho. Chai Chai Yiducho posuk Yishayim. He said Chai Chai Yiducho. Chai is 18. So Tzedek said 2 times Chai is 36. This is what the Tzemach Tzedek told his chosid. When are you Yechidus? You don't understand what the Tzemach Tzedek is saying. What is this? This is a story what this chosid told the Frierdiker, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe is telling us the story what that chosid told the Frierdiker Rebbe. He said to himself that I hope one day God will reveal to me somehow what this is, what did the Tzemach Tzedek meant. 70 years later, the seed went to the oil of the Tzemach Tzedek, and all of us, and he cried and everything else, and all of a sudden it hit him this, what the Tzemach Tzedek told him, Chai Chai Yiducho. 2 times Chai is 36. And all of a sudden it seemed to him that the Tzemach Tzedek appeared to him, and he told him, Chai Chai Yiducho, 2 times Chai is 36, you were 36 times in Lubavitch. He was crying there and everything else. Years later, this Chassid went, he told the Frierdiker Rebbe the story, and then he said he's already in the 90s, and he feels his koiches, his strength is leaving him, and he's ready to depart the world. So he's going to the Tzion from the Rebbe Rashab and so on and so forth to ask before he prepares himself for the world to come. And I read the story of that Chassid is getting ready to go to Gan Eden. We are ready. The Gan Eden is going to come down here. The Rebbe is going to take us out from Golus, so the Gan Eden is going to come down here. So a Chassid prepares himself. What does he do? He goes to the Oyalim from the Tzadikim, and so the Rebbe told us what to do. The Rebbe told us what to do to bring Mashiach. The Rebbe said, learn the Sichas, learn the Maimor, and learn all these things. You know, many people ask, what's the difference between Yud Shvat and Gimel Tammuz? After the previous the Rebbe passed away, many times the Rebbe said that the Frierdiker Rebbe als bavont, already everything was, and he also said, and also you hear everybody right away with this Basiligani. Basiligani, you learn a week, a month before, a week before you learn, you say by heart, after Ma'ariv and in the morning, Amaisa Basiligani. The Rebbe gave us a very big Basiligani, 4 volumes of Tov Shunun Aleph and Tov Shunun Beis, a very long Basiligani. And the Rebbe over there also put everything in there what we should do. So that Chassid is preparing himself to go to Gan Eden. He goes to the Tzion and goes to the Rabbeim, and preparing to meet them over there. We are getting to meet the Rabbeim, going to come down to meet us over here. So it's a story what the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote. It's an unbelievable story. The Frierdiker Rebbe writes about this Chassid. I also took notes from certain places, very interesting expressions of the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Rebbe Kemat barely ever spoke about himself. He didn't speak about himself. there were several times when the Rebbe did speak about himself, is when it came to Abbas Yisrael, when there was something, there's no other way out. So the Rebbe like had no choice. He had to talk about himself. Like the story, the Abacha once wanted to Yechidus to the Rebbe, and he's about to go to college. I don't know if it was a full of Babich or whatever. And he was a little bit chutzpahdik, so he said, then how come you went to you went to college? So the Rebbe said he was Baki B'Shas before he went to college. The Rebbe doesn't talk about himself, how much he knows what to learn. But to help another Yid, obviously so, the Rebbe talking about himself. In the other way around, the Frierdiker Rebbe expressed himself a lot of personal and interesting things. A lot. There's a whole controversy. They printed letters from the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe to his daughter and to the Rebbe. It's all controversy whether they should have printed or not, because you see very personal things there, and as it is known that we shouldn't learn Kabbalah, because you learn Kabbalah, you can be megashim it, you can not only not understand, you can bring it down. It's not somebody who's learns Chassidus and capable economic Kabbalah, something like this. You look in these letters where the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe writes, a person can touch size as, it's not, but anyway, put that on a side, the Sefer HaSichos, which the Rebbe wanted, they should print from the Frierdiker Rebbe, see a lot of interesting things. For example, I'll give you one thing. Frierdiker Rebbe says that everybody knows what the Alter Rebbe was in jail. In other words, the Baal Shem Tov, the market came to him. So the Frierdiker Rebbe writes, it didn't pass 15 minutes where I didn't see my father. This is just, I'll give you an example. One time by Farbrengen, the Frierdiker Rebbe says like this, and I'm quoting, the Chaim der Eibster soll helfen, soll geben, Chaim, God should give, soll sich ausführen in Taten's Rotzen, it should be fulfilled, the will for my father, the Taten's Kavana, the father's Kavana, the Taten's gute Freundschaft, my father's good friendship, zu jeder, to every Jew, und zu jeder Chosid, and to every Chosid, or as Chas v'Sholem Yismameya, God will be till Mashiach, soll der Eirach Chassidus ziehen mit der Achader bis Mashiach. So, to make a footnote in Teres Sholem, which everybody knows, that the Rebbe Rashab says, Shaliach ben Eire le'elam vod, the Rebbe Rashab says this. Shaliach ben Eire, the candle for Mashiach should not be distinguished. As the Eire Baal Shem Tov, the light from the Baal Shem Tov is Tomid Meir, that shines always. Chassidus wird sein bis Mashiach. Chassidus is going to be till Mashiach without doubt. Warum? Is doch David Melch Yisrael Chai V'Kayim. This is David Melch Yisrael Chai V'Kayim. But das ist gewesen der Baal Shem Tov. That was the Baal Shem Tov. Und der Magid. Und der Rebbe. And as they ständig, and this is always like that, was mir seinen doch, David was wird ständig sein bis Mashiach. We are from King David, which is known, the Rebbe put in the Hayem Yem about bis Mashiach.
What did they name him?
Huh?
They put name him that what?
Mid-
There the name is the Mishak.
From there. Here, there's an interesting thing. By Farbrengen, the Frierdiker Rebbe says, Hert Yidden, listen. It says, Faran and Anaya, it's a word in Russian. And he says like this, a new thing. Adebos what folgen was Yichalam Hasten, whoever listens, what I will tell him, is mit wasich well mentioned, with what I will bless him, vet mekoim werden, is going to become fulfilled. The Frierdiker Rebbe promises. Das habe ich heimgebracht von euch. I brought this today from the oil. Was zu Menschen, das ist mir weggegeben geworden, das ist mit Namen Zeder. In other words, I went to the oil, and this is what my father gave. What do you see? These things were the Frierdiker Rebbe.
If you listen, then you'll be blessed what you need. That what you're saying?
Huh?
If you listen, then you'll be blessed what you need.
If you can listen what I tell you, then whatever I will bless you, this is what I brought.
If listen.
The Frierdiker Rebbe also, as we all know, the library with the Sforim and everything else, it was unbelievable. Came to Sforim, and not only Sforim, he collected a lot of things, Apinkis from Achava Kaddish and all these kind of things. So I got today, somebody gave out a sefer called Bnei Tzamach Tzedek. All the children of the Tzamach Tzedek, very interesting stories that they put together. So he writes an unbelievable thing, and again, in the name of the Frierdiker Rebbe. Amram Bloy, pronounce the soul. And he says like this: the Revosh was the Bechor from the Tzemach Tzedek, the Revosh. The Alter Rebbe, he was a young boy, and the Alter Rebbe taught him the Kriyas HaTorah. And not only Torah, but Nevi'im and Ksuvim. Alter Rebbe taught him all Torah from Torah, Nevi'im and Ksuvim.
Alter Rebbe met Ravash.
It was
Bueno.
somebody asked me the same question. Even the younger brother was together in the Alter Rebbe when they ran away from Napoleon, and he fell out from the wagon. The Alter Rebbe Zenikel. So I'm saying the Rosh Ben Elter, Rosh Shon, Ben Elsa. So the Alter Rebbe taught him, and he writes, he was before Bar Mitzvah, and he learned Shabbos and Shabbos to Mincha and Monday and Thursday in front of the Alter Rebbe in Torah. It was not even Bar Mitzvah yet, which is, by the way, interesting. The Frierdiker Rebbe put on tefillin when he was 11 years old. It was most of my son. And the Alter Rebbe told him, the Revosh Rebbe Shalom, that since you listen to me, so it should continue. Lo yamushu mipichum peizera zaracho. It should not stop from you and your children. And till Mashiach is going to come, because this nigga, what I taught you, comes from Malchus Datzilus. I said, he's looked out there. It's come from Malchus Datzilus, and therefore I want you to. It should be continued till Mashiach is coming. Just saying, it's such a beautiful sayings from the Frierdiker Rebbe that he writes about certain times. He says Rosh Hashanah one time by Ma'ariv. All of a sudden he saw his father, and his father had gesagt, da steht ganze Dvar Torah auf the phrase which we say Zochenu l'chaim al-chometz b'chaim v'Hashem b'seva chaim. So this is Frierdiker Rebbe writing these things, talking about himself. It's just very I find it fascinating.
Not much. Wow.
From Torah. Now also, I don't know how many people know, but also the Frierdiker Rebbe had a gun with him. Frierdiker Rebbe carried a gun with him. And I'll tell you a little history what happened in Lubavitch. There were when the transition of the government with Nikolai, so there was a lot of troublemakers and Poilitzia and Zionists and people who drifted off from Yiddishkeit, and they were involved with this nonsense. And they couldn't stand the Rebbe Rashab because of the Yeshiva Teim Chetvimim, because he was very much against it. So there's one time a Bochel, he got carried away he was a Teim Chetvimim, and he got carried away with that gang. So they kept his stuff, they hid his stuff in the office, the Bocher stuff. And one time when the Bocher was out by himself, they kidnapped, back the Bocher into the yeshiva, and they locked him up in one of the offices. Came all these Chavra, and they came to the office, and they wanted to have, first of all, came to the office, they want to have his stuff. And the Bochim wanted to hit them, and the Rebbe Rashab said, no, don't touch them. And they said that, listen, we're responsible to bring the Bocher back home to his parents. He came to the yeshiva, he registered here, we have to send him back. So you cannot, Bottom line is, when they captured him and took him also in the yeshiva, so then these Poilitzin, these guys came and they shot with guns. So the Rebbe Rashab said to close all the windows in the Lubavitch. They closed the windows and they were shooting. And there was one guy who was there in the office. The bullet went mamish over his head, but thank God nobody got hurt. And the Bochum prepared the sticks from the bed and everything else in case they want to fight, whatever it is. The Poil. So the Poil, they called the father, and the father came and took away it. One time, guy from they found out that previously the Rebbe is traveling someplace. So a bunch of them gathered together to one of the stations. After the Frierdiker Rebbe is going to be there, the Frierdiker Rebbe writes, so I prepared my gun to aim on them. And he was given to another chassid. So he told the chassid to go out and please take care of it. So the chassid went out because the police let us know that there's gangs there. So the chassid went out and he planned to touch the Remezun. The father's Noah's son at the Machenflash Ashen Porosh. He'll make from you and everything else. See, they all ran away. But one time the Frierdiker Rebbe went from the mikveh in the morning, and one of the guys that couldn't stand the Frierdiker Rebbe started to beat him up. And the Frierdiker Rebbe was fighting back with him, back and forth. And Frierdiker Rebbe showed on himself like the guy was about to choke the Frierdiker Rebbe. And in one place I saw the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote, I kicked him in that place. That's what he said. I kicked him there. In Boy. Anyway, and the Frierdiker Rebbe ran, Rebbe ran away. And then a while later, they met. So like each one said, like I still have pain from this, and he said he has still pain from that. This guy who ran away from yeshiva and then later they kidnapped him and sent him back to the parents. 10 years later, he sat in jail, and there was another guy that met him there, and he was then became back a former younger man, but he wasn't. He was like modern. He was shaving or something like that. Just a little history what the Snefet, what the Frierdiker ever had when it was still in Russia.
What's the bottom line?
To prepare for Moshiach. The Frierdiker Rebbe said that he's the 8th generation. By the way, twice I've seen in the secrets from the Frierdiker Rebbe, he said he's the 8th generation. He said about the mikveh, he says, I would like to have a nicer mikveh. In other words, in the previous generations, he says, a mikveh is a mikveh. But he says, because I have 8 floors above me. So it means 8 floors, he's the 8th generation. So, and the Rebbe said many times that we're the 7th generation from the Rebbe, the 9th generation from Al Shem Tov, and many times he said we're also the 3rd generation from the Rebbe Rashab. I think he said one time 4th generation from Rebbe Marash. I don't recall where I saw it. I think he said that one time. But the Frierdiker Rebbe himself said that he's the 8th generation. And so, we are the 9th generation or the 7th generation, whatever it is. The Rebbe promised us Mashiach is going to come. We are the day of Geula, and this is going to happen.
So we have all to get guns? Is that you're trying to tell us?
Huh?
All to get guns? We should all get licenses?
Spiritual guns, which we have. What do we need?
Guys. We need to go with something else. We need to go with something practical. We're going to go with Farbrengen. We need to hold on to something. My El's going to go into his bed. He's going to say Mapil. He's going to say Meda'an. He's watching Nagal Master. And the whole Farbrengen's going to be gone. He'll have his coffee tomorrow. He's going to be checking his Bitcoin while he's having his coffee. Don't worry, I'm not chesh you in Bitcoin. I know you never think of Bitcoin. Whatever.
You have an obligation, so tomorrow make again a Farbrengen and pound it in again. We're going to get somewhere. You see that the world is so great as it can be. Nothing makes sense what we see today. You see, nothing makes sense. It's mamish. No one can predict 1 minute what's going to be in the world. We see it so great. And this it says clear that this is a big, because Mashiach is going to straighten everything out. So it can be more fadreit right now.
There's one chassid that told the Rebbe Rashab, L'chaim, the Rebbe should have this in mind. The Rebbe Rashab said, if you will have me in your heart, I'll have in your mind. The similar to Rabbi Brad was saying, that the Frierdiker Rebbe said that Frierdiker Rebbe said that I went to the oil, and what I was told by the oil, I was told that if you will listen, then whatever I bless you with will happen. This now is in the oil. Yeah, everyone thinks they have like the smart thing to write that up, the smart thing, right? The smart thing. And it's always whatever as Rivka was saying before, whatever you write is always going to be dumb. Why is it always going to be dumb? Because you're always writing from your perspective of there's 4 sons, right? By the Seder him. All the 4 sons, what do they have in common? Those questions. How come not a son has the answers? I don't have questions. Because the Avish is sending a shaman with a body, a soul in a body, gonna have questions. You're gonna be the wise son, the wicked son, you're gonna be the simple son. Maybe the son doesn't know how to ask the question, but he for sure have a question. Also, a shaman in a body doesn't have a question. I know I was in Eil and I happened to see a sikh on Eil. The Rebbe says, you ask why you need a Rebbe. You need a Rebbe for guidance. You know everything, you don't need a Rebbe. It's like, oh, that's exactly what I need to ask for. I need to ask for guidance. I'm gonna ask the here to ask the sikh. That's what you need a Rebbe for. So that's when I told you, right? I didn't tell you. So I wrote this in my letter. Please, I just need guidance. That's what I need. Out of the hair still. That's what I wrote to Rebbe. Then they showed me videos by the oil. And the Rebbe says, someone comes to the Rebbe and he tells the Rebbe should continue to lead the Jewish people. The Rebbe said, in order to lead, you have to let me lead you. It's like, oh,
Listen.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I know. I know where the Rebbe is leading me, and I just let go of my and I just let go. No, Yankel did. Yankel is Apicurus. Marius, you know any Epicurus? No, not Epicurus? No. All right. So, all right.